Chapter 800. Fengjiu, who was walking leisurely into the city, smirked. His eyes were cold, and his tone was indifferent. That will depend on their abilities. Xiang Hua's heart sank. Depend on their abilities? Did this mean that the odds were against him? What was so strange about that place? Could it stop her from getting involved in it, or even saying those words? They were silent all the way until they reached the inn. Bai Xiao, who had been waiting at the entrance of the inn for 3 days, saw them return. She immediately waved her hand and shouted, young master, I'm here, I'm here." He ran over to Fengjiu's side and looked him up and down. "Are you okay? You didn't come back for so many days. I thought you were delayed by ghosts." Fengjiu knocked his head as soon as he said those words without thinking. "You won't be delayed by me." She laughed and knocked his head. "Did you get the information?" He grinned and scratched his head. "It was delivered yesterday." Let's talk inside." She nodded with a smile and walked into the room he had booked. Xiang Hua, who had followed them in, heard Bai Xiao's words and his eyes narrowed. He was one step behind and pulled Du Fan. "Du Fan, you've been in there. Is it true that?" "I didn't see it, but there was something wrong with it. There was also a formation. If I wasn't familiar with formations, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to walk out of it." Speaking of this, he paused for a moment. After being together for so long, you should have some understanding of Master's character. Those people were seeking their own deaths, so they can't blame Master. You better not lose your sense of propriety. Don't forget how you got out of there. Hearing this, Xiang Hua's expression turned serious as he said, "Don't worry, I know my priorities." The two of them didn't mention it again. They went upstairs and entered the room. At the table in the room, Bai Xiao poured tea for Fengjiu and said, "I saw that you weren't back yet, so I read the information here. The 100 Years Mountain looks like an ordinary mountain to the outside world, but from the information here, it's very strange. It's really like a ghost mountain." He sat down beside her and said, "It says that some ordinary people go in and walk around before coming out again. Anyway, they can't go in. However, some cultivators go in and never come out again. Also, it said that this place is more creepy at night, and there are faint ghostly flames floating. The information made a guess that this place might be a ghost village, or perhaps the people of this family are raising ghosts. In short, it is a dangerous place." Fengjiu looked at the information and listened to Bai Xiao making a fuss. He couldn't help but smile. "No matter how dangerous it is, you walked out of there. You didn't get dragged away at that time, so you don't have to worry. At that time, that person kept staring at you. I think that if you weren't there, I would definitely have been dragged away." He couldn't help but shudder when he thought of the black-robed man he met inside. After a long time, Fengjiu closed the information and handed it to Bai Xiao. The 100 or so people from the Tianyuan Palace went in and couldn't come out. "That's good. I don't have to do it myself." She stood up and patted her robe. She said to them, "Find a room to rest. We'll stay here for 2 days. If there are no changes, we'll leave." As she spoke, she gestured for them to leave. Chapter 801. Outside, Xiang Hua hesitated and looked at Bai Xiao. "Let me see the information." Du Fan and Bai Xiao both looked at him. After a pause, Bai Xiao handed the information to him. "Take a look. I have to return it to them later." "Okay." Xiang Hua responded. After taking the information, he entered the other room that the waiter had booked. Bai Xiao said to Du Fan, "Shall we go downstairs to eat something?" "Okay." Du Fan nodded and went downstairs with him. They ordered a few dishes and ate. Halfway through the meal, Bai Xiao suddenly said, "She hasn't eaten yet, has she?" So she ordered 2 more dishes and asked the waiter to send them upstairs. An hour later, the door of the guest room upstairs opened and Xiang Hua came out. Seeing the two of them downstairs, he went downstairs and returned the information to Bai Xiao. Then he went back to his room. What's wrong with him? Why does he look so weird? After drinking half a bowl of soup, Bai Xiao asked the waiter to clear the dishes on the table. She looked at Du Fan and asked, "Didn't you go to contact those people? Why are only the two of you coming back with the young master?" Du Fan looked at Xiang Hua's back and said, "Those people went into the mountain." Upon hearing this, Bai Xiaowei gasped. "Are you serious? They really went into the mountain? Isn't that a little too bold?" Du Fan stood up and went upstairs. "I'm going back to rest." Before Bai Xiao could say anything, he went upstairs first. Seeing that they were acting weird, Bai Xiao ignored them. She put away the information and planned to return it to them first. After all, they had told her that there was only one copy and she should return it after reading it. As the night deepened, the inn became quiet. However, at midnight, Xiang Hua opened the door and was about to go out when he saw a figure sitting on the railing in front of the door and looking at him. "Are you trying to cause trouble for master?" Du Fan stared at him and asked coldly. Xiang Hua was silent for a long time before he said, "It is precisely because I don't want to cause trouble for young master that I plan to go alone at night. There's no need to go. You won't see a single living person even if you go back. Even if you go, you'll just be adding another dead person. That place is so strange that even master doesn't want to set foot in it. Why do you want to get involved in it? But I was the one who brought them here. They were originally going to follow that group of people. Even if you didn't lead them, they would still enter the mountain. You and master have already reminded them. They were the ones who stubbornly insisted on going to their deaths. They can't blame anyone else." Hearing this, Xiang Hua remained silent and stood still. "Since you're already following master, you have to follow master's orders. Whether those people live or die, master didn't say, so you don't have to care." After saying this, he got up and returned to his room. Xiang Hua stood at the door for a long time. He looked in the direction of the 100 Years Mountain and sighed softly before he turned and went back into his room. The next morning, Feng Jiu was eating downstairs. At another table, Bai Xiao and Xiang Hua were drinking tea. After a while, Du Fan, who had gone out to inquire about the news, came in. "Master, none of those who went into the mountain came out again. They're all inside." "Yes," she responded. In her mind, she was thinking, what's going on with that family? Even if it was written in the information, it was only some guesses and some superficial things. It didn't mention anything about what was inside. Chapter 802. Someone asked me to give this to you. A 7 or 8-year-old child ran in, but before he could get close to Feng Jiu, he was stopped by Du Fan. "Let him come over," Feng Jiu gestured for him to step aside. "Someone asked me to give this to you." The child came in front of Feng Jiu and handed him something, but his eyes were fixed on the snacks on the table and he swallowed his saliva. Seeing this, Feng Jiu took the thing and asked the waiter to pack some snacks while asking, "Who gave this to you?" It was a man in black. He said that he would give it to a big brother in red. Hearing this, Feng Jiu opened it to take a look. When he saw the content of the invite-like post, his eyes moved slightly. "Young master, the snacks are ready." The waiter brought the snacks over. Feng Jiu took it and handed it to the child, "For you." "Thank you," the child thanked him happily, took the packed snacks, and ran out quickly. She held the red invitation in one hand and tapped the table with the other. She looked outside with a thoughtful expression. She did not speak, and the 3 people beside her did not dare to ask. In the end, Bai Xiao could not help but ask, "Young master, what is that?" "The family in the 100 Years Mountain sent an invitation. They said that they would hold a banquet for us in the evening," she said casually and tapped the red invitation lightly on the table. When the 3 people heard this, they were stunned. "How did they know that we live here?" Bai Xiao asked in a daze, then she whispered, they can't have been secretly following us, right? Sending an invitation for no reason. I don't think it's a good thing, Du Fan said. Well, then tell me, why would they send this thing? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and looked at him. Du Fan paused for a moment, then said, it's very likely that they have their eyes on Master. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said lazily, even if they send an invitation, it doesn't mean that I have to go, right? But why would they have their eyes on me? I'm a little curious. Young Master, it's better not to go there. That place is full of ghosts. If you go there, you might not be able to come out, Bai Xiao said in a low voice. Just thinking about that place made his hair stand on end. What are you nervous about? I didn't say I was going. Just throw this post away. She stood up and went back to her room. She really didn't want to go. That place looked like a ghost town. Who would want to go to such a ghost town for no reason? He was afraid that he would come back with some ghostly aura. Because she didn't plan to go, she threw this matter to the back of her mind. After returning to her room, she entered the space to cultivate, not taking this matter to heart. When the three people downstairs heard that she was not going, they ignored her. Only Xiang Hua was holding the card and wondering if the 20 or so people were still alive. He was a little hesitant, but he also knew that Fengjiu didn't say anything. He couldn't cause trouble for her. After all, even nascent soul cultivators didn't come out after going in, let alone her. Fengjiu was cultivating in his room, while Xiang Hua and Du Fan waited downstairs. Bai Xiao said that he was going out to buy something, but he didn't come back until evening. The two of them felt that something was wrong. One of them stayed and the other went out to look for him, but they couldn't find him. Finally, they knocked on Fengjiu's door. Fengjiu, who opened the door, still looked a little sleepy. She looked at the two people in front of the door with a dignified expression and couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. What's wrong? Chapter 803. Disappeared? What do you mean? Her eyes darkened and her voice turned cold. In the afternoon, he said that he was going out to buy some things and would be back soon. Who knew that he would be gone until now? I went out to look for him but couldn't find him. I asked around but there was no news. Du Fan frowned and said, I even went to the city gates to ask around. However, the guards at the gates said that there were too many people going in and out so they couldn't remember. Fengjiu walked out and went downstairs. When he arrived outside the inn, he looked at the sky and his eyes moved slightly. Young Master, do you think that the people from the 100 Years Mountain captured him? Xiang Hua asked. She looked at him and asked, besides this, could it be anyone else? They had only been here for a few days and had not made any enemies. Moreover, the person they captured was Xiao Bai. Besides the people from the 100 Years Mountain, who else could it be? It seems that they were worried that I wouldn't go, so they captured Xiao Bai. What's their purpose in forcing me to go? That day, she and Xiao Bai had entered the array and the black-robed man had asked them to leave. But today, she didn't go and they came looking for her. It's getting dark. Mistress, should we go? Du Fan asked as his gaze fell on her. Go, how can we not go? Since they've captured someone to force me to go, if I don't go, would they let it go? Her voice was cold as she said. She then said to the two of them, the two of you can stay here. Mistress, I'll go with you. Du Fan said. I'll go too. Xiang Hua also opened his mouth and looked at her, there's no reason for us to stay here if young master goes. Moreover, I also want to see if they're dead or alive. Seeing this, she glanced at the two of them and said, then let's go. With that said, she brought the two of them to the 100 Years Mountain. When they arrived at the 100 Years Mountain, the sky had already turned completely dark. When they were about to ascend the mountain, Du Fan lit a fire to illuminate the path. The air was still filled with a gloomy aura. Occasionally, a chilly wind would blow, causing people to involuntarily shiver. Feng Jiu, who was walking in front, had a normal expression. It was just ghosts. It wasn't like she hadn't encountered them before. It was just that this place gave her a strange and dangerous feeling. She didn't want to set foot in here. Unexpectedly, she didn't want to come, but the people here wanted her to come. Since that was the case, she wanted to see what kind of ghost place it was. Woo-da, a voice drifted through the night, accompanied by a gust of chilly wind. It sounded like a ghost's howl, echoing faintly in the ears of the three. Before the voice had finished, the surrounding trees and bushes rustled, as if someone was walking, but they couldn't see the figure. Some footsteps that didn't belong to them sounded behind the three of them. They were messy but clear. Xiang Hua, who had walked to the back of the group, glared. He pulled out his sword and swept it behind him. Following the attack of the sword chi, there seemed to be a panicked voice. With a whoosh, the sword chi cut through the night sky. The footsteps behind them disappeared once again, as if they had never appeared. However, after the footsteps disappeared, a strange laughter faintly sounded in the air. That laughter came closer and closer until it seemed to stop right beside them. Chapter 804. Do you know the way? It's okay, I know the way. I'll lead the way. The faint words were accompanied by a chilling aura. However, as soon as she finished speaking, she let out a shrill scream. That shrill scream almost instantly cut through the night and broke the gloomy atmosphere inside. In an instant, the sound of a bird flapping its wings and flying rang out in the night. Du Fan and Xiang Hua's bodies were tense. It could be said that the two of them had been in a state of high tension ever since they stepped into this place. Especially when they saw the strange and shocking white-colored ghost that had suddenly appeared before Feng Jiu, they were terrified to the point their hearts jerked. They were just about to shout loudly when they saw Feng Jiu flip her palm, and then a clump of flames caught the ghost off guard and incinerated it into nothingness. Seeing this scene, the moment they relaxed, they were even more shocked because they noticed that there was no aura of spiritual power surging from her body. However, at that moment, a cluster of flames surged from her hand and burned the ghost at a speed that was too fast for them to cover their ears. The ghost didn't even have time to escape. They thought that women would always be afraid of ghosts, and this kind of fear came from the bone marrow and was almost instinctive. But they never expected that she would be extremely calm as she looked at the ghost, and with a wave of her hand, she annihilated the ghost. If I want to come in, do I need you to lead the way? Feng Jiu coldly snorted. She raised her hand, extinguished the flames, and continued walking forward. The two people behind her didn't dare to stay and quickly followed behind her. At this moment, Du Fan realized that his master's cultivation in arrays was above his. He had to look left and right carefully, but she walked casually. However, every point she stepped on was the eye of the array. The array that was originally changing only changed in the first part of the path, but it was almost like a straight road in the back. It was as if she had destroyed a ghost with a wave of her hand. On the way down, other than the strange noises that came from the night, there were no more ghosts around them. Even the footsteps that they had heard before did not appear again. When they walked out of the maze formation and arrived inside, they still saw a dense fog spreading out in the darkness. However, within this fog, there were faint green ghostly flames leaping about. They didn't know if it was an illusion, but Xiang Hua and Du Fan saw that in the night, whether it was in the air, on the ground, on the trees, or in the bushes, there were faintly discernible ghosts. There were so many of them that they sucked in a breath of cold air. Feng Jiu, who was in front, indifferently glanced around and saw all the ghosts. The chaotic and faint cries echoed in the air and drifted with the night wind. At this moment, the fog in front of them seemed to be pushed aside by someone. It automatically moved to the sides, revealing a winding path. A black-cloaked person appeared on the path. He raised his head slightly and looked at Feng Jiu. Please come in. That person turned slightly and gestured for them to enter. Fengjiu didn't look carefully that day. Now that he looked again, he realized that this black-cloaked person was actually a ghost cultivator. Chapter 805. They followed the ghost cultivator inside. Along the way, they encountered many floating ghosts. Perhaps it was because the ghost cultivator was leading the way, but the ghosts did not dare to approach them. However, they still stared at the three of them. As they walked, clusters of green will-o'-the-wisps lit up on both sides of the originally dark path, illuminating the winding path. In the fog, they seemed to be able to vaguely see a mansion in front of them. The mansion seemed to be right in front of them, but after walking for some distance, they still could not close the distance. Xiang Hua, who was following behind Fengjiu, glanced at the floating ghosts. A few familiar faces made his heart tremble. When he looked again, they were all dressed in white. Their hair was disheveled, and some of their white clothes were stained with blood. They floated in the air as if they did not know where to go. He noticed that the ghosts inside seemed to be unable to walk out of this mountain and could only float on it. The ghost cultivator in front of them stopped and pushed open the door of the mansion. A dry and calm voice came from the ghost cultivator's mouth. "My master has already prepared a feast to entertain you. Please." Fengjiu looked up and saw that there were only 2 words written on the mansion, Gui Mansion. She thought, it should be the ghost mansion. There were 2 stone lions at the door, and 2 red lanterns swaying gently in the night wind were hanging on the left and right of the door. The mahogany door was open, and the light inside was dim. The light was not strong, but it was still visible. When they walked in, they no longer saw ghosts, but ghost cultivators. The ghost cultivators were guarding the mansion like guards. There were men and women, and the women were like ordinary maids in a family. They were carrying things in their hands and walking back and forth, looking very busy. Under the ghost cultivator's lead, they walked all the way until they arrived at a bamboo forest. There was a banquet set up there, and will-o'-the-wisps were embellished in the forest, floating like enlarged fireflies. At the side of the long banquet table, the unconscious Bai Shao was lying on a chair, and on the main seat was a seductive woman in a sexy red dress. The scant amount of clothing couldn't cover her voluptuous figure. The fabric on her body only vaguely covered her chest and buttocks. Even though the rest of her body was covered by a light veil, she was still nearly naked. Her long legs were crossed and her snow-white slender legs were propped up on another chair. Her entire body was lazily leaning against the chair. Her fingers, which were dyed with black nail polish, were gently twirling the strands of hair that fell over her cheeks and playing with them. The woman was as beautiful as a seductress. The makeup on her face was smoky, which was rarely used by women. This makeup made her look even more seductive and charming. She looked to be about 25 years old, and her figure was extremely mature and voluptuous. Her skin was extremely white, and under the contrast of the red gauze, it was as flawless as white jade. Her entire body was emitting a seductive and dangerous aura. This was a stunningly beautiful woman who was enchanting, charming, and seductive. She was also a dangerous, stunningly beautiful woman. Moreover, this was a stunningly beautiful woman that she couldn't help but admire and praise. Even though she knew that the two of them were almost enemies in this situation, she couldn't help but say that the moment she saw this woman, she couldn't bring herself to hate her. It was because she was too beautiful. She was so beautiful that it was pleasing to the eye and made one's heart bloom with joy. Chapter 806. While Fengjiu was sizing up the girl was also sizing up Fengjiu. She liked to wear red and had seen many people wearing red, but there were not many who could bring out the flavor of red. The young man in front of her seemed to be one of them. He had an outstanding appearance and a charming temperament, but he also had an innate noble aura. His words and actions were free and easy, with a trace of laziness and elegance. It had to be said that the first time she saw this young man, she felt that he was quite pleasing to the eye. so pleasing to the eye that she had the urge to make him stay to accompany her. Wanyan Qianhua, what about you? When the ghost cultivator who was waiting at the side saw that she really said his name, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. He glanced at her and saw that she was looking at the red-clothed young man with interest, so he stood quietly at the side. My name is Fengjiu. She smiled and walked forward to pull out a chair to sit down. I originally thought that the owner of this 100 Years mountain would be a terrible old man. I didn't expect that it would be such a beautiful girl like Big Sister. Seeing Big Sister who is as beautiful as a flower, the anger in my heart has dissipated quite a bit. He, your little mouth seems to be smeared with honey. Calling me Big Sister this and Big Sister that makes my heart burst with joy. She lightly covered her red lips and chuckled. Her slender finger pointed and winked coquettishly. She seemed to be angry and smiling at the same time. It was very moving. I rarely call someone Big Sister. Big Sister is the first. Who asked Big Sister to like me? The more I look at you, the more pleasing I find you. I haven't met someone as interesting as you in a long time. She looked at Fengjiu with a smile in her beautiful eyes. Not only is your appearance and temperament outstanding, but you are also more courageous than others. Most importantly, you are to my liking. Xianghua, Du Fan, and the ghost cultivator saw that the two of them were actually familiar with each other and were chatting and laughing. They couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. They were somewhat stunned and also somewhat confused. Why was the situation so different from what they imagined? These two should be meeting for the first time, right? Why did this scene seem like sisters who hadn't seen each other for a long time? They stood at the side and watched the two of them chatting as if there was no one else around. Occasionally, they would chuckle and blend into the scene. No matter how they looked at it, it was quite harmonious. However, that was only the two of them. For the three people standing at the side, they felt that this scene was extremely strange. Because the two people's tempers were originally a little strange, but when these two people with strange tempers met, they hit it off immediately. Oh. In other words, elder sister asked me to come over because she knew that the Qingfeng sword was with me? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at Xianghua. It seemed that he must have let it slip to those people. Otherwise, how would they know? That's right. The Emerald Edge sword was originally an ancient divine sword. It said that it's quite good at killing ghosts. I wonder if that's true. She asked with great interest. Yes, it's true. Fengjiu nodded his head. As he spoke, he had already taken out the Qingfeng sword and placed it on the table, placing it in front of her. Elder sister, do you want to try? Seeing this, Xianghua and Du Fan's hearts suddenly jumped, and their eyes narrowed. She actually handed the Qingfeng sword over just like that. Wasn't she afraid that the woman would take it for herself? Seeing this, the ghost cultivator at the side also glanced at Fengjiu with a strange gaze. Seeing this, the reclining Wanyan Qianhua couldn't help but purse his lips and smile. He took the Qingfeng sword from the 7-star sword sheath and opened it slightly to take a look. A green light shot out. Chapter 807. Hearing this, Fengjiu curled his lips into a smile. Although I just met you tonight, it feels like I've known you for a long time. From your bearing, I can tell that you're not from the Green Ting Kingdom. After chatting with you for a while, I know that you were only interested in the Qingfeng sword. Since I dared to push the Qingfeng sword to you, I believe that you won't take it away from me. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua chuckled. I think you have become a spirit. My brothers are not as strange as you. Then let me tell you one more thing. Although I like to dress as a man, I am not a man. I am a woman. She winked at her and said slyly. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua was stunned. Ah. A woman? Where are your breasts? As he spoke, his gaze fell straight on her flat chest. With a strange expression, he asked, You're so flat. Fengjiu's mouth twitched. She glanced at Xiang Hua and Du Fan, who lowered their heads in embarrassment. She coughed lightly and said, "Of course I can't compare to you, sister." He, of course. She covered her red lips and chuckled. She only took out a section of the Qingfeng sword. She glanced at it and did not touch it. Instead, she returned it to her. "Keep it." Since the Azure Edge sword is an ancient divine sword, it naturally isn't something that just anyone can obtain. Since you were able to obtain the Azure Edge sword, you naturally have it recognize you as its master. I won't have any ideas about this sword, because I discovered that you're even more interesting than this sword. Hearing this, she was stunned for a moment. She chuckled, "This is the first time someone has compared me with a sword. I don't know if I should cry or laugh. This means that your charm is greater than the ancient divine sword. Of course you should laugh." She sat up straight and poured 2 cups of wine. "Today, I have decided that you are my little sister." Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and raised her cup. "Sister, this cup is for you." She raised her head and drank it. "Good." Wanyan Qianhua also smiled and raised her cup. "After drinking this cup of wine, you will be my, Wanyan Qianhua's little sister in the future." She also drank it. Other than Bai Xiao, who was sleeping like a pig and snoring, the sober Xiang Hua and Du Fan did not know how to describe the scene in front of them. They thought it would be a fierce battle. Who knew that it would become a ceremony in the end? That's right, 9th sister, those 20 people are still being hung. They were the ones who told us that you have the Qingfeng sword in exchange for their lives. I originally wanted to teach them a lesson and not let them die. Since you are here, why don't I leave them to you to deal with them? They're still alive. Xiang Hua looked at Fengjiu in surprise. Young Master. Fengjiu frowned and glanced at Xiang Hua. "Xiang Hua, don't forget who you are. Do you think I will treat them well?" Xiang Hua's body stiffened. That's right. They betrayed the young master. In order to survive, they told him about the Qingfeng sword. It was already a capital offense. How could he beg his master to save their lives? I have never shown mercy to betrayers. Sister, do what you need to do. She looked at Wanyan Qianhua and said. Chapter 808. 10,000 Ghost Banner. When Fengjiu heard this, he could not help but widen his eyes. Is it that little banner that looks like a small flag and is very powerful just by waving it around? So that's the use of all those ghosts outside? Oh. You've heard of it? Wanyan Qianhua looked at her in surprise. Logically speaking, no one should know about this place. I heard that the 10,000 Ghost Banner can summon the wind and rain after collecting the souls of tens of thousands of ghosts, causing the weather to change. In short, it's very powerful. I really didn't expect you to know about it. That's right, it is indeed so. Moreover, the more powerful the ghost, the more powerful it is. As she spoke, her hand moved and a black flag appeared in her hand. Look. She gestured to Fengjiu and then waved the flag in her hand. The ghosts outside flew back one by one and entered her small flag with a whoosh. Fengjiu's heart trembled when he saw this. He saw the white ghosts float in from outside and enter the small flag. The flag did not seem to grow bigger. It was just a small flag, but it surged with a cold and gloomy aura. As the flag danced, the bamboo in the bamboo forest also rustled in the wind. Too powerful. So many ghosts have been sucked in. Her eyes lit up and she said, "Big sister, your flag is really a treasure." Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua smiled and said, "If you didn't say treasure, I wouldn't have thought about it. Since I've already recognized you as my little sister, how could I not give you a greeting gift?" She raised her hand and put away the flag. Then she searched her body and finally took out a pendant from somewhere. "Come a bit closer." She waved her hand. Fengjiu stood up and walked forward. When he arrived in front of her, he saw that she tied the pendant around her waist. She looked at it and saw that it was a very exquisite pendant. It was decorated with a few jade beads. Below it was a small purple bell and a small gourd. The gourd looked like it was made of wood, but it was very exquisitely carved. It was very small and there seemed to be an indecipherable pattern on it. "Big sister, what kind of pattern is on this gourd?" she asked curiously. "Don't look down on these two things. These two things are both treasures. In the future, when you go out, if you meet any evil creatures, even if you can't see them, the little bell at your waist will ring to warn you." In addition, this small gourd was carved from a Jiuhua spirit peach and spirit wood, and a talisman master was asked to inscribe runes on it. With this treasure, no demons or ghosts would dare to approach you. Moreover, after you drip your blood on it to claim ownership, this small gourd can be used to collect ghosts. Ordinary ghosts would melt into nourishment after 6 hours. No matter how formidable they are, they wouldn't be able to last a day. Feng Jiu's eyes glowed with excitement because of her words. She looked at the ornament on her waist with a curious and excited face. "Sister, thank you for your gift. I like it so much." "It's good that you like it. Then shouldn't you give big sister a greeting gift?" She winked at her and asked. "Greeting gift?" She thought for a moment and said, "I don't have many magic weapons that I can take out. The only thing that I can take out is probably this." She took out 10 bottles of medicine from her space and placed them in front of her as if she was presenting a treasure. Chapter 809. Medicine. Wanyan Qianhua was stunned for a moment. She didn't have much hope. After all, she was too young. What kind of medicine could she refine? However, when she opened a bottle and took a whiff, she couldn't help but be slightly stunned. She looked at Feng Jiu and asked, "What level are you at?" She grinned proudly. "High-level medicine sage." Wanyan Qianhua was stunned. She opened her mouth and then laughed happily. "I found a treasure. I actually recognized a medicine sage as my younger sister." "Ha ha ha, a medicine sage in her teens. She has a bright future ahead of her." As soon as she finished speaking, she pulled her over and said, "Jiu Mei, come. Let me tell you. Next time, you should refine a bottle of beautifying medicine for me. It's best if it can make my face more beautiful." Upon hearing this, Feng Jiu's eyes lit up. She said, "Sister, I've wanted to make this for a long time. Let me tell you, medicine is not as good as elixirs in terms of beautifying one's face, so I've been learning how to refine elixirs recently. I've found more than 10 kinds of elixirs that can beautify one's face. I plan to refine the beautifying elixir when I go back. I'll send it to you when I'm done. Come. Let's go back to the courtyard to chat. It's too cold here at night." She held her hand and went back to the courtyard. She instructed the ghost cultivator behind them to take good care of Du Fan and the others. That night, Feng Jiu and Wanyan Qianhua chatted for the entire night. They only went to bed at dawn. Bai Xiao also woke up at dawn. However, she was a little confused. She didn't know how she ended up here. However, when she saw that Du Fan and Xiang Hua were also here, she didn't make a fuss about it. However, they didn't see Feng Jiu for the entire day. When night came, the 3 of them were told not to leave the residence at night. Bai Xiao didn't pay much attention to it. When she opened the door of the residence and planned to go out for a walk, she was frightened by the ghosts that were floating all over the mountain. Feng Jiu stayed there for 3 whole days. On the morning of the 4th day, he bid farewell to Wanyan Qianhua and left with Du Fan and the others. When she walked down the 100 Years Mountain and turned back to look at the mountain peak, she couldn't help but sigh. Even she didn't expect that on this trip, there would be another elder sister. However, knowing this elder sister was indeed an advantage. It was one thing for her to be unfathomable, and it was just as she had guessed. She was not from the Qingtan kingdom. She had thought that she was from a first-class country, but she did not expect that she was from one of the 8 great empires. Coming from such a powerful empire, it was no wonder that Sky City would have such strength and cultivation. She retracted her gaze and looked at the 3 people beside her. Finally, her gaze fell on Xiang Hua. Xiang Hua, Du Fan. Young master. Master. The 2 of them took a step forward and responded. Xiang Hua, those people in the Tianyuan Palace are all dead. You're the only one left. I don't know how many people are lurking outside. In short, I'll leave the matters of the Tianyuan Palace to you and Du Fan to manage and expand. However, you must remember that the reorganized Tianyuan Palace is not allowed to do evil. If there are any evil deeds, I'll hold you accountable. Yes. The 2 of them responded respectfully. In addition, find out the whereabouts of the descendants of the Chu family and see if there's any news. As for Little Bai. Chapter 8:10. Yes. The 3 of them replied and looked at her. Du Fan asked, Mistress, are you going back to the College of Stars and Clouds? How are we going to find you in the future? The 3 of you have communication jade tubes in your Chinkuan bags. If you have any problems, you can send me a message directly. If you can solve it by yourself, you don't have to find me. As she spoke, she threw the flying feather and sat on it, looking down at the 3 of them. Xiang Hua, after you find a place to stay, go to the Phoenix Dynasty and bring Luo Yu and the others here. Yes, Xiang Hua replied. He looked at her and nodded before leaving on flying feather. Let's go too. I know a place that is the starting point of the Tianyuan Palace. I'll take you there. Du Fan looked at the 2 of them and said. The 2 of them nodded and left with him. This matter was quietly resolved. The Tianyuan Palace, which had been in an uproar recently, seemed to have disappeared again, gradually fading out of everyone's sight. No one knew that the Tianyuan Palace was like a new tree bud, growing new branches and leaves, waiting for the right time to strike. A few days later, Fengjiu returned to the sect and went straight to the main peak. Dean, Vice Dean, the matter has been resolved. She sat down at the table where the 2 of them were sitting and poured a cup of water for herself. Seeing her leisurely without the slightest hint of fatigue, the 2 of them looked at each other and said in surprise, We received news that the people from the Tianyuan Palace went to the 100 Years Mountain and didn't come out. You also went to that place? The 100 Years Mountain. I went in. She nodded, then lowered her voice and said, However, it's best not to go there. Especially the students of the school, don't go in out of curiosity. Otherwise, you won't be able to come out. Is there really something strange about that place? The Vice Dean asked. Fengjiu looked at him and smiled, Vice Dean, I'm sure that even if you went in, if the owner of that place didn't let you go, you wouldn't be able to come out. However, don't ask me about this matter. I promised that I wouldn't say anything. She waved her hand and stood up after drinking 2 cups of tea. I'll go back and rest first. I'm exhausted. When the 2 of them saw this, they couldn't help but draw a few black lines across their foreheads. Looking at her energetic appearance, where did she look tired? However, he didn't ask her to stay any longer. Instead, he watched her leave. After returning to her abode, Fengjiu took a bath and changed into the academy's uniform. Instead of resting, she began to research the face-nourishing pill. This research lasted for several days. As she began her trial, the cauldron would explode from time to time. The commotion was so great that even the 2 alchemists on Pill Peak were alarmed. The 2 of them personally came to see what was going on. Why would Fengjiu's alchemy furnace always explode? Coincidentally, she bumped into him, who had just returned from changing his pill furnace. Fengjiu, is there something wrong with you? How could a good alchemy furnace explode in just a few days? Was there something wrong with the technique? Do you need us to give you some pointers? When she heard this, her eyes lit up. She immediately pulled the two of them. Perfect, perfect. Instructor, I'm refining a face-nourishing pill. Come in and help me see where I went wrong. I've already wasted several cauldrons of pills. What? Face-nourishing pill. The two of them were stunned. What kind of pill was a face-nourishing pill? They hadn't refined it before. Just as they were about to speak, Feng Zhou half pushed, half pulled them into his abode and into his alchemy room. Chapter 8:11. You prodigal son. The two of them glared and cursed. With a pained expression, they went forward to pick up the spirit medicine, then put it down. Looking at the dregs of the spirit medicine on the ground and the smell of burnt spirit medicine still lingered in the air, they looked even more pained. These are all worth thousands of gold coins. The academy also needs a lot of contribution points to exchange for them, but you actually used so many precious spirit medicines to refine some face-nourishing pill. This is simply a prodigal son, too prodigal. Feng Zhou was a little stunned. Seeing the two's pained expressions, as if they couldn't wait to take away the spirit medicines on the table, she couldn't help but smile. Instructor, that's because you don't know the benefits of my face-nourishing pill. She walked forward and explained to the two with a smile, my face-nourishing pill is specially refined for women. After the pill is formed, it has the effect of beautifying and brightening the skin, restoring a woman's appearance to its most beautiful state. Even if there are scars on the face, it can be healed. Therefore, this pill can be called a face-nourishing pill, but it can also be called a face-nourishing pill. It can preserve a woman's youth and beauty forever. It is a good thing that is hard to come by. She spoke excitedly, but the two alchemists' faces darkened. They shook their heads and sighed, then advised in a meaningful tone, Feng Zhou. You are a good child, a good youth with a bright future. You are the hope of our academy. You must remember that you are a man. We men shouldn't play with those women's toys. Things like this face-nourishing pill, we men shouldn't make them. It's the same as the rouge on a woman's face, it has nothing to do with men. Hearing this, Feng Zhou held back her laughter with great difficulty. She originally wanted to say something, but seeing that the two alchemists' faces didn't look too good, and remembering that they didn't know her identity as a woman, she said with a serious face, yes, instructor is right, I will remember. Instructor, don't worry, I will definitely not disappoint you. I will definitely bring glory to our academy so that the other academies won't dare to look down on us. Good, 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 good. When the two of them heard this, they immediately became excited and smiled. We knew that you were a good kid with ambition. Not bad, not bad. They nodded, looking at him as if he were their own child. One of them said, look, you went out a while ago. You must have suffered a lot. You've lost a lot of weight, and when you got back, you buried your head in pill concocting. You look so wan and sallow. Come, come. I have a piece of meat lingji. Take it and have the ovens cook it for you. It'll be good for your body. I still have the spirit ginseng from the Ji Lao mountain. It's aged. Look at how haggard you are. Come, 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 take it. You can eat it tomorrow. Just cut a few slices at a time. You can't eat too much. That's right, that's right. You should properly nourish yourself. Normally, we didn't have the chance to come and see you. We only cared about refining pills by ourselves. Fortunately, you're an obedient child with outstanding talent. You even know how to study by yourself. That's why we didn't delay your progress. Chapter 8:12. Good, good. We believe that you won't disappoint us. As the two spoke, they took a sip and realized that it was wine. The moment it entered their mouths, the rich spiritual energy spread out. They couldn't help but praise, good wine. Since there's no more tea, I'll pour wine for you too. Since you like it, you should drink a few more cups. She smiled as she poured wine for them. The two listened happily and drank happily. Unknowingly, they drank too much. By the time they left, their steps were unsteady. After sending the two of them off, she kept the meat lingji mushroom and old ginseng that the two of them had given her and returned to the pill refining room to study her beauty-nourishing pill. When she was engrossed in one thing, she would be completely focused on it and would not be able to divert her attention to anything else. This study took her a few months. In the past few months, there was a faint sound of thunder on top of Elixir Peak, but it seemed to be dispersing. Sometimes, the sound of an exploding elixir furnace could be heard echoing on Elixir Peak. In the past few months, even Guan Shilin and Yi Jing could not see her. She seemed to be wasting her time on the beauty pill. However, at this time, there was still half a month before the new year. The students of each courtyard were preparing to go home. However, Fengjiu was still in seclusion on Dan Peak, on the main peak. I heard that she's been in seclusion for a few months. Has she not come out yet? The dean looked at the vice dean and asked. No, I've gone to check on her a few times. Only the three beasts are guarding outside. I haven't even seen her shadow. Last month, when young Master Mo Chen came back, he went to look for her. He didn't see her either. As the vice dean spoke, he recalled the expression on Mo Chen's face when he received the clothes from Fengjiu. His thoughts drifted away. He paused for a moment. Seeing that there was no one else around, he looked at the dean and asked, Dean, what do you think young Master Mo Chen is doing? I don't know either. The dean shook his head and said, young people like him should deal with their own matters. We can't interfere. That's true. However, I'm afraid that this Mo Chen will fall into the hands of Fengjiu in the future. The hardest thing for a man is love. He shook his head and sighed, as if he was deeply moved. Hearing this, the dean couldn't help but laugh. So, you also had such a period when you were young? Why didn't you mention it? He. Don't mention it, don't mention it. He waved his hand and said, I just remembered that I have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. He didn't wait for a response and quickly left. However, before he could walk out of the courtyard, he heard a loud rumble in the sky, shaking the entire mountain gate. He was shocked and hurriedly held the gate and shouted, What's going on? What was that sound? Could it be thunder from the Alchemy Institution again? The dean also walked out. At this moment, a student quickly ran in and reporting to the dean, vice dean, it's thunder from the main peak of the Alchemy Institution. I saw lightning and thunder striking down together. It's very powerful. The entire mountain is shaking. Some students have already rushed over to see what's going on. Hearing this, the dean shook his head and smiled. I knew it had something to do with the Alchemy Institution. The only person in the Alchemy Institution who could cause such a huge commotion is probably Fengjiu. I just don't know what she's doing. Why would she attract such a huge lightning strike? Chapter 8:13. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. In the next moment, they quickly rushed towards Pill Peak. At this moment, 2 more bolts of lightning struck down from the sky. 3 bolts in a row, rumbling loudly. A pill that could attract lightning had to be at least a level 5 pill. She had only been in contact with pills for a year. Could it be that she could actually refine a level 5 pill? When they thought of this possibility, waves of shock surged in their hearts. If that was really the case, her talent was too shocking. At the same time, in another courtyard on the main peak, Mo Chen also saw the lightning strike the Pill Institute. His eyes moved slightly, and he also got up and headed towards Pill Peak. Guan Shilin and Yi Jing knew that it was Fengjiu who had caused the commotion, so they also headed towards the Pill Institute. Naturally, the 2 Pill Masters from Pill Peak and the Pill Ancestor who had yet to show his face were not missing. It could be said that the Pill Ancestor had arrived at Fengjiu's cave faster than anyone else. This was because the moment the pill was formed, an unconcealable medicinal fragrance filled the air. The rich medicinal fragrance wafted in the air, and coupled with the lightning, he immediately knew that a level 5 pill or above had been produced. Thus, he immediately rushed over to Fengjiu's cave. In the cave, Fengjiu held 3 pills in her hands. 2 of them were finished products, while the last one had become an unknown strange pill. She casually put it into her space. After researching for so long, I've finally figured it out. She looked at the pill patterns on the 2 pills, then looked at the pill aura on them. She was even more satisfied. I'll get someone to send one to my sister, and keep the other for now. Now that I've refined this beauty pill, I just need to adjust it a little, then I can refine a pill that can make grandfather younger. She muttered to herself. The more she spoke, the more excited she became. Just as she was thinking of taking advantage of this momentum to refine a beauty pill that could be used by men, she heard someone calling her from outside. Thus, she put away the pills and walked out. Who is it? Her hair was messy and her clothes were wrinkled. There were patches of black and white on her face. It was unknown whether she was stained with some kind of ash or medicinal juice, but the smell of medicine also spread in the air as she walked out. You're Fengjiu. The middle-aged man frowned as he sized up Fengjiu. Yes, who are you? She nodded and scratched her hair. She wanted to use her fingers to comb her hair so that it wouldn't be rude. However, she didn't see that her current image couldn't be worse. I'm Huang Danzong from Pill Peak. Did you refine a level 5 pill? Quick, show it to me. His tone was urgent, and his face was filled with anticipation and anxiety. Hearing this, Fengjiu didn't think much of it. Thinking that he was probably just excited to see her concoct a 5th level pill, he took out one of the bottles and poured out the pill. It's level 5. She opened her palm and was about to tell him the attributes and effects of this pill when she saw him take the pill from her hand. Seeing this, she only frowned slightly, but didn't say anything. It's a level 5 pill. This smell is from icicle flower. And the smell of platycodon, good, very good. This color, this smell, they're all top-notch. Good, very good. Chapter 8:14. Master Huang, this is the pill I refined. She stood in front of him, smiling as she spoke. However, if one looked closely, they would be able to see that there was no smile in her eyes. On the contrary, there was a trace of coldness. I know it's the pill you refined, but I want to take it back and study it. That's right, what pill is this? Where did you get the pill recipe? Write down the pill recipe and pill refining steps for me to see. Hearing that matter-of-fact tone, Fengjiu chuckled. I didn't even know someone had the right to take away the pill I refined. Furthermore, you're asking me for the pill recipe and pill refining steps. Master Huang, your surname shouldn't be Huang, it should be Niu. What do you mean? I'm taking your pill back to study because I think highly of you. Don't think you're amazing just because you refined a 5th level pill. You're just a new student of the pill department. His face darkened and was filled with displeasure. However, he held the pill tightly in his hand. It looked like he had no intention of returning it. Of course I'm talking about how thick-skinned you are. Only Niu Pai can compare to you. Fengjiu pursed his lips. Furthermore, I'm not that familiar with you, right? Give it back to me. She stretched out her hand, indicating for him to return the pill. In her heart, she was thinking that when other people were holding medicinal pills, even if they were evaluating the grade of the medicinal pill, they would also have to use something to pick it up. She was a person who refined medicinal pills. It was one thing for the medicinal pills to pass through her hands, but this person was good. He directly grabbed it with his hands. She didn't know if his hands were clean. With a medicinal pill held in the palm of his hand like that, who would dare to eat it later? Thinking of this, her face darkened. She had spent so much effort refining something, but it was dirted by someone. He even wanted to snatch it away. Hee, how interesting. Return what? Didn't you hear me say that I'm taking it back to study? Can't you hear me or what? As the pill department's master alchemist, could it be that I can't take a pill from you? You're too presumptuous. Who taught you how to refine pills? The two people from the pill department who have been stagnant as pill masters for more than 10 years. Like teacher, like disciple, you're just as ignorant. He didn't care about anything else and just cursed. With a flick of his sleeve, he directly walked past Fengjiu and was about to leave. The dean and the others, who had just arrived, happened to hear these words. Their expressions were extremely ugly, especially Guan Shilin. As her elder brother, he couldn't help but clench his fists when he saw that someone dared to bully his sister, snatch her things, and even boast so shamelessly. He just wanted to rush up and teach this person a lesson. However, he had already passed the age of impulsiveness, and he knew to think twice before he acted. Not only him, but there were also the two alchemists from the alchemy department, as well as the dean and vice dean, as well as the students who had been attracted by the 3 bolts of heavenly lightning. Thus, he really couldn't teach anyone a lesson in this situation. However, if the dean and the vice dean didn't handle this matter well, he didn't mind teaching Huang Danzong a lesson afterwards. At this moment, the faces of the 2 instructors from the Academy of Alchemy were slightly pale. They looked embarrassed, ashamed, and angry. They were really, really sad to be treated like this by someone they respected. Chapter 8:15. Dean, I didn't take his pill. I just want to take it back and study it. His face was dark. Being yelled at by the dean in front of so many people, he felt a little embarrassed. What do you mean study it? That's Fengjiu's pill. Did she allow it? She didn't allow you to take it from her. Huang Danzong, don't forget that you're a grandmaster. A grandmaster should act like a grandmaster. The dean shouted in a deep voice. His face was also very ugly. He didn't expect to see such a shameful thing when he came here. If he didn't come out, he wouldn't have known that such a thing would happen under his watch. If this person was really just an ordinary student, he probably wouldn't have taken the pill. Who would dare to offend a grandmaster alchemist? No need. Since Huang Danzong wants to take it back and study it so much, then take it. However, her eyes moved slightly. She instantly reached out and sealed his acupoints. Taking the pill from his hand, she smiled and narrowed her eyes. Compared to taking it back and studying it, I think you'll understand the medicinal properties of this pill better after you eat it. As soon as she finished speaking, she stuffed the pill into his mouth without giving anyone a chance to stop her. The surrounding people were stunned. They watched as Huang Danzong swallowed the pill with wide eyes. They also watched as Fengjiu clapped her hands and unsealed his acupoints. For a moment, they all looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Wasn't that a level 5 pill? Why did she make him eat it so easily and casually? Level 5 pills were extremely rare in the outside world. Every single one of them was priceless. However, she just raised her hand and stuffed it into Huang Danzong's mouth and made him swallow it. You Fengjiu. You're so presumptuous. As soon as the voice came out, it became a soft female voice. Huang Danzong was shocked. He instinctively reached out to cover his mouth. However, when he covered his mouth, he felt the beard on his chin fall off for no reason. His face paled, and he touched his chin again. His beard, which was not much to begin with, had fallen off completely. Not even his pores could be seen. Even when he touched his chin, he did not feel the prickly sensation of shaving. Along with it, he felt that his skin had become tender, soft, and thin. What kind of medicinal pill is that? At this moment, his male voice was no longer there. What replaced it was a shrill female voice. His Adam's apple had also disappeared. Gradually, even his body seemed to be undergoing a shocking change. Everyone widened their eyes in shock and astonishment. They looked at the pale-faced Huang Danzong. They watched as the beard on his face fell off and his face gradually became younger. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that while he was becoming younger, he was actually changing in the direction of femininity. Originally, Huang Danzong was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. Although his body was not sturdy and tall, he was not weak either. However, right now, Huang Danzong's figure had changed. His waist had become a woman's slender waist, and his chest had bulged suspiciously, forming a woman's figure. Moreover, his skin was so smooth that it could not even compare to an ordinary woman's. This scene caused everyone's jaws to drop. All of them were dumbfounded as they watched with their mouths agape. Chapter 8:16. Ha 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 ha. This is turning into a woman. Ha 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 ha. Serves him right, serves him right. Following Guan Xilin's loud laughter, the students who were attracted by the lightning began to discuss in disbelief. Hiss. What kind of pill is that? It can actually turn a man into a woman. Look at Huang Danzong, he even has a woman's chest. Damn. This is unbelievable. I've never heard of a pill that can change a person's gender. That's right, I'm afraid he won't be able to change back in the future. What kind of pill is that? Why is it so strange? Huang Danzong is from the alchemy school, he should be able to cure it, right? I don't know if he can cure it, but look at him, it's so funny. It's fine if a man doesn't have a beard, but a man with a chest. Hee hee, it's so novel. The pill refined by Fengjiu is too powerful. Look, if a man took it, he would be like this. If a woman took it, how beautiful would she be? Also, didn't you notice? That Huang Danzong has become younger. Yes. If I can get one of those pills and give it to my mother, she'll definitely be happy. If I can get one and give it to Senior Zhou Xian, she'll definitely become more beautiful. At that time, she might even accept my love. Didn't you hear that it's a level 5 pill? It's priceless. After the initial shock, each and every one of them saw the benefits of the medicinal pill and became very interested. However, even though they were all talking, they also knew that the medicinal pill was a 5th-tier medicinal pill and was not something that they could easily obtain. Besides, there was a living example right in front of him. Huang Danzong was a pill ancestor, the highest-ranking person in the academy. However, when he encountered the eccentric Fengjiu, he didn't care whether the pill was a 5th-tier pill or not, and directly stuffed it into his mouth. Now, a good man had been twisted into a woman. Compared to the shock and astonishment of the crowd and Huang Danzong's panic and anger, only Fengjiu was watching calmly. He was purely testing the effects of the pill. Looking at Huang Danzong's snake-like body, as well as Sun's smooth, snow-white skin, and youthful appearance, she nodded her head in satisfaction. Not bad. I didn't expect the effects of the medicine to be so good. It's a pity that it was used on a man. If it was used on a woman, she would definitely become a demoness. Fengjiu. You, hurry up and cure it for me. Cure. Huang Danzong screamed in panic and anger. When his hand touched his originally flat chest, which had become 2 soft places, his face immediately became green and red. I'm sorry, but I don't have the antidote for a pill I just refined. Fengjiu spread out her hands and said leisurely, moreover, the pills I refine usually don't have an antidote. Huang Danzong, don't pretend to be innocent after getting a bargain. After getting benefits, you're still shouting. You're dozens of years younger. As she spoke, she couldn't help but laugh. Staring at his face and body, she said with a smile, touch it and see. Not only are you younger, your skin has become whiter, smoother, and softer. I bet that if you change into female clothes and walk out, you'll attract a lot of attention. No one will know that you're a man, really. Chapter 8:17. Principal, Principal, look at me. Look at how I am right now. It's all because of Fengjiu. Principal, this is the pill he refined. He must have a way to refine the antidote. Principal. He took a few steps in front of the principal and pulled him, hoping that he would give the order for Fengjiu to refine the antidote. The principal was pulled by him like this and glanced at his figure that made people unable to look at him directly. His face couldn't help but tremble. He lightly coughed and waved his hand to push him away. Looking at Fengjiu, he was just about to speak when Fengjiu's voice sounded out. Principal, you are the principal of Star Cloud Academy. The pill I refined with great difficulty was eaten by one of your subordinates. Shouldn't you compensate me with the spirit medicine? Fengjiu looked at him and asked with a smile. Hearing this, the principal glared at him. I saw you shove the medicine into his mouth. Why are you asking me for the spirit medicine? That is a 5th level spirit medicine. I used no less than 100 precious spirit medicines to refine it. I don't need to talk about how much was wasted. After refining it with great difficulty, your subordinate Dan Zong took it from my hands without caring about anything else. He even kept it in his hands and didn't give it to me. I was planning on giving that pill to someone. I don't know if his hands were clean after going to the latrine. After being touched by him like that, would my pill still be useful? If I don't give it to him, who should I give it to? Could it be that you also want it? She raised her eyebrows and her words carried a bit of ridicule. This made the principal so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Looking at the Dan Zong's appearance that was neither male nor female, the principal shivered and said, You gave him the antidote. What do you lack? Later, I'll have the vice principal bring you to get it. There's no way around this. She spread out her hands. I don't know how to refine the antidote and I can't refine it. It's better to let Huang Danzong research it himself and then refine the antidote. In any case, he is very interested in that pill. This is perfect. He can personally experience it. No one knows the effects of this beauty-nourishing pill better than him. Fengjiu, you're not afraid of being expelled from the academy. At this moment, Huang Danzong's heart finally started to panic. He looked at Fengjiu's expression. It seemed that Fengjiu really wasn't willing to refine the antidote for him. Should he refine the antidote himself? Could he refine it? He didn't have the confidence to do so. Hearing his words, Fengjiu's eyes turned cold and he sneered, Dean, other than compensating me for the elixirs, I also hope that you can give me an explanation. A dignified pill ancestor stole my elixirs. If I don't punish you, how can I refine elixirs here in the future? Will there be another person who will appear next time and take away the medicinal pills that I have painstakingly refined? When the surrounding students heard this, they all began to whisper and point at Huang Danzong. Their words were filled with disdain. Seeing this, the principal took a deep breath and said, Huang Danzong, your actions today are indeed unethical. Logically speaking, you should be expelled from the academy. However, seeing that you have contributed a lot to the academy over the years, I will remove you from your position in charge of the pill department and punish you to face the wall for 3 years. You must research the antidote for yourself and you are not allowed to leave the academy. Principal. He felt as if the sky had collapsed in an instant and he fell limply to the ground. If he had known, he wouldn't have been so greedy. Chapter 8:18. Since when did I cause trouble? It was clearly him who provoked me. She curled her lips and looked towards the Vice Academy head. Vice Academy head, shall we go get the herbs now? The Vice Academy head glanced at the principal. Seeing him nod, he said to her, Let's go. Seeing this, everyone's gazes fell on Huang Danzong, who was sitting on the ground. After sizing him up, they all pursed their lips and smiled as they left. The principal looked at the changed Huang Danzong and sighed, What do you want me to say about you? There are so many people in the academy, yet you chose to provoke her. Hurry up and go back and think of a way to remedy this. With your current appearance, it's best if you don't walk around too much. It's really... He couldn't continue speaking. If it was someone who didn't know, it wouldn't have been so bad. After changing his clothes, he really did look like a woman. However, those who were familiar with him only felt awkward and speechless when they saw Huang Danzong like this. If he looked at him too much, his eyes wouldn't be able to take it. He really didn't know what to say. The principal shook his head and left with a flick of his sleeves. Only Guan Xilin and Yi Jing were left behind, as well as the dazed Huang Danzong who didn't know what to do. On the other side, the vice academy head, who had brought Fengjiu to get the herbs, returned to the main peak after an hour. He couldn't help but wipe his sweat when he saw the principal. "You're back so soon. Fengjiu's herbs have all been picked." The principal was playing chess with Mo Chen and asked when he saw him return. The vice academy head looked at him and opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. "What's wrong? If you have something to say, say it. Don't hesitate." The principal looked at the vice academy head's expression with amusement. He placed a chess piece and said to Mo Chen, "It's your turn." Seeing this, the vice academy head hesitated for a moment, then pulled out a piece of paper from his sleeve and handed it over. This is the list of herbs she took." The principal glanced at him and took a look. He couldn't help but stare. This bandit. So many aged herbs, and she even took 2 sets of all of them. Why doesn't she just rob someone? With a pained look on his face, he clutched the paper filled with the names of spiritual herbs tightly in his hand. He cursed in his heart. This wastrel, if she were to come a few more times, all the precious spiritual herbs in the academy would be taken away by her. When Mo Chen saw this, he reached out 2 fingers to take the piece of paper and glanced at it calmly. His voice was neither fast nor slow as he said in a gentle voice, "She really knows how to pick things. With so many spiritual herbs, I reckon that she has already taken back the pill with interest. I knew it. Nothing good will come out of meeting her." The dean shook his head and took a sip of tea to calm himself down. "Dean, that Huang Danzong just let him do that?" The deputy director asked, but his eyes were fixed on Mo Chen. He was also an alchemist, and a rather high-ranked one at that. Perhaps, he might be able to cure the effects of the pill, but it would not be easy to ask him for help. He brought this upon himself, so let him bear it. Don't worry about him for now. He's a pill master himself, and a great master at that. If he can't cure the effects of that pill, then we can only let him stay like that forever. Thinking about how he had lost so many precious spiritual herbs because of him, the principal felt a pang of pain. He naturally didn't have a good impression of Huang Danzong and didn't want to care if he lived in that body of a woman. Chapter 8:19. Seeing this, the vice-headmaster sighed inwardly and could only stop mentioning it. In the following time, Fengjiu did not pack up and prepare to go home like the others. Instead, she once again immersed herself in refining pills. First, she refined 2 face-nourishing pills. Then, she researched and refined a type of pill that could restore a man's youthful vigor. She named the pill for women the face-nourishing pill, and the pill for men the face-building pill. These 2 types of pills, from the selection of ingredients to the refinement process, were all based on their attributes. Therefore, if one ate the wrong one, the effects would naturally be the same as Huang Danzong's. Seeing that she was immersed in refining pills, Guan Xilin bid farewell to her and told her that he was going to follow the people from the black market to gain experience. Thus, Fengjiu asked him to help her pass a face-nourishing pill to Du Fan and the others so that they could send it to the 100 Years Mountain. After Guan Xilin left, Yi Jing also told Fengjiu the location of her house so that she could go and find her when she had time. Then, she also left the academy and went home. It could be said that of the entire academy's students, only Fengjiu remained in her cave and did not seem to have any intention of leaving. However, there were two people who had been neglected, and that was Nietang and Ouyang Xiu. Nietang saw that Fengjiu had not yet left, so he stayed in the cave to cultivate and planned to leave after she left. As for Ouyang Xiu, he was still looking for an opportunity to exchange a few blows with Fengjiu. Therefore, when the others left, he also stayed in the academy. He was waiting for an opportunity to test Mo Wen's strength after he finished refining pills, so that he could satisfy Mo Wen's stubborn desire to fight him. On this day, Mo Chen, who was dressed in white, came to her cave and sat down at the stone table under the tree. His deep, bottomless gaze looked at the cave, where there was faint movement. His expression changed slightly, and no one knew what he was thinking. He sat there quietly, and his thoughts seemed to have drifted far away. The three beasts at the side weren't sitting down. Their gazes were fixed on him for a while before they moved away. To him, they still recognized him. In the following month, she stayed in the cave and didn't even take a step out of the cave. As for Mo Chen, he would come here every day to sit, watch, and wait, until one day, 3 more bolts of divine retribution lightning fell from the sky. When the divine retribution lightning dissipated, laughter came from the cave. When he heard the laughter, his lips couldn't help but curl up into a smile that even he didn't notice. It's done. It's finally done. Ha ha ha. Inside the cave, Fengjiu held 2 medicinal pills in her hands. These were young attribute face establishing pills. When her grandfather got married, she wanted to refine them for him, but she didn't expect that it would take her until now to refine them. After her excitement, she put away the pills. Seeing that her clothes were a mess, she first washed up and changed into a clean set of clothes before walking out of the cave. However, when she walked out of the cave and saw the white figure under the tree, she couldn't help but be stunned. She looked at him with a strange expression. Young Master Mo Chen. Why are you here? Without waiting for Mo Chen to speak, Lao Bai said, he's been sitting here every day. He didn't just come today. Don't you plan to go home? He asked. His voice was gentle and light, with a trace of indifference. Why? She stared at him guardedly. What does it have to do with you whether I go home or not? Chapter 820. I don't want it. She rejected him without even thinking, and it was a straightforward rejection. Perhaps because he did not expect her to reject him so straightforwardly, Mo Chen was stunned for a moment. For a moment, he did not know what to say, and just looked at her quietly. Seeing this, Fengjiu sighed, adjusted his expression, and asked seriously, Young Master Mo Chen, just say it. What do you want to do? Don't tell me you don't have a goal. I remember last time you looked at me with disdain. Why have you been appearing here all this time? What do you want to do? What did he want to do? He was slightly stunned, and then revealed a smile. This smile gradually became warm, but in the end, this smile made Fengjiu feel a bit cold. I just want to see what kind of person the Star of the Phoenix is. Star of the Phoenix? What does that mean? This sentence that came out of nowhere, made her feel a bit confused. When the Star of the Phoenix appears, a different soul will enter the world. It will come from beyond the heavens, break through the 8 extremes of the way of the heavens, and become the master of the world. He looked at her, and did not miss the strange look that flashed through her eyes. He slowly said, These are the words of my teacher, Elder Tianji. And looking for you is my goal in coming here. Fengjiu was stunned, and said, What master of the world? I have never thought of becoming the master of the world. Also, what does this have to do with you looking for me? He was right when he said that a different soul would enter the world, but how did he know it was her? Also, even if that was the case, she had nothing to do with him. Hearing this, his eyes darkened, and his eyes were as deep as the sea. He silently looked at her, and after a long time, he turned and left. Seeing him turn and leave, Fengjiu muttered, Strange. It was strange in the first place. Even if she was that person, it had nothing to do with him, right? Also, this person seemed to like to say things halfway, and it was hard to know what he wanted to say. Master, I think he has bad intentions towards you. Lao Bai said from the side. Fengjiu rolled her eyes. If he had bad intentions, he wouldn't have saved me. Speaking of which, although this person is a bit strange, he has saved me twice. Also, his strength seems to be quite high. She touched her chin and asked, do you think his cultivation is higher than uncle's? No. The two beasts spoke in unison, almost without thinking, they answered in unison. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows. Why? That Yama King's aura is too strong. Just a look from him and we don't dare to speak. Although this one is also unfathomable, he doesn't have as much dominance and pressure as Yama King. Naturally, he isn't as strong as Yama King. Pooh! As soon as she heard the two beasts call Xianyuan Mose the King of Hell, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. Sigh. We have been here for a year, and I haven't seen him for a year. I wonder how he is. She murmured softly, and looked at the sky in the distance. She really missed him. 10 years, 10 years. Ha ha ha, she would not wait for 10 years to find him. Once she had settled the matters here, she would go to the 8 great empires to take a look. However, compared to that, she had more important things to deal with now. She had asked the people in the black market to find out about her mother. After such a long time, there should be some progress, right? Chapter 8:21. She planned to go out, so she returned to the cave to change out of her school uniform and put on her red robes. However, before she could leave Dan Mountain, she was stopped by Ouyang Xiu. Fengjiu, fight with me. Ouyang Xiu, who was riding on his sword, stared sharply at the young man in red robes. Because he refused to fight with him, this stubbornness in his heart would only grow deeper and deeper. Furthermore, the more he refused to fight, the more the fighting element in his body clamored for a fight. You again. Fengjiu was helpless. Looking at the man in front of her, she felt that he was really stubborn. Why did he insist on fighting with her? Didn't he know that a man hitting a woman was the most immoral act? Alright, at least this person didn't know that she was a woman. Furthermore, it was almost impossible for him to find her in a fight with his cultivation level. Ouyang Xiu stared at the young man on the white horse and said, originally, it was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. But the more you don't want to fight with me, the more I want to fight with you. If you don't want me to bother you, then fight with me. Just the two of us. Don't worry, even if you lose, I won't tell anyone. Pfft. Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh. She felt that this person was really interesting. A person in the middle stage of foundation establishment told her that it didn't matter and that it wasn't embarrassing for her to lose to him. Won't tell anyone. At this moment, she couldn't help but be curious. If this guy knew that she could even kill a nascent soul cultivator, would he still be so arrogant and say such funny things? However, no matter what, she could tell from his words that this person didn't have any bad intentions. He was probably just a person who liked to fight. You really want to fight with me? She raised her eyebrows and looked at him. That's right. But I don't like to fight with people for no reason. Her eyes turned and looked at his darkened expression. She laughed mockingly and said, but, it's not like I can't fight with you. I just don't know, do you dare to bet with me? If you lose, I will be your master in the future. If I lose, I will be your errand boy in the future. How about that? She suddenly became interested. This Ouyang Xiu's appearance was not bad, and his talent was not bad. If she had such a person as her disciple, it seemed that it would be quite good. Hearing this, Ouyang Xiu sneered, I'll take it. However, I must remind you that I have already entered the late stage of foundation establishment. Yes, I know. It's good that you accepted it. She nodded and smiled like a fox that had succeeded. In the next moment, she made her move without any hesitation. When Ouyang Xiu saw this, the aura in his body surged. Just as he was about to fight, his body stiffened, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Good disciple, let me hear you call me master, Feng Jiu said with a smile as he stood behind him with one hand around his throat. His face turned green and red at the same time. He didn't expect that he wouldn't even be able to block a single attack from him. Looking at the young man who had retreated from his side and was staring at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, he gritted his teeth. Master. Ah, good disciple. Feng Jiu smiled and narrowed his eyes. He looked at the person who was embarrassed and ran away. He laughed all the way to the side gate of the academy. What's wrong? Seeing the guards in front of them, she asked and pulled Lao Bai over to take a look. Chapter 822. The figure outside the side door was a little boy who looked to be about 3 or 4 years old. He was wearing a fitted black robe, a pair of boots of the same color, and a jade pendant tassel hanging from his waist. The little boy had his hands clasped behind his back, looking like a little adult. He seemed to be annoyed at being stopped, as he stood there with his brows slightly furrowed. However, Feng Jiu didn't even blink when she saw him. This little boy's excessively exquisite features were actually a miniature version of Xianyuan Mo's. His aura, in particular, was somewhat similar. However, he was still a child of 3 or 4 years old, so his aura was clearly lacking. Seeing this child, several thoughts flashed through her mind. Was this his younger brother? That's impossible, right? Younger brothers shouldn't look so similar. With such similar features, even the way they frowned was the same. They were clearly father and son. Illegitimate son. Could this child be Xianyuan Hei's illegitimate son? As soon as this thought appeared, she instantly felt unwell. When Feng Jiu appeared, the little boy had obviously noticed her. His eyes flashed with an indescribable light as he stared at her, then looked away, as if he was somewhat embarrassed. Ah! 9th young master. Hui Lang, who was standing behind the little boy, immediately shouted happily when he saw her. He said to the guard, quickly move aside, move aside. I'm looking for her, looking for her. Seeing this, the guard retreated to the side, but his eyes were still sizing them up from time to time. Feng Jiu had already seen Hui Lang a while ago. However, when she saw that the little boy's features were so similar to Xianyuan Mo's, she immediately became unhappy. Don't tell her what brothers were. No matter how similar brothers were, they wouldn't look so similar. 9th young master, I haven't seen you for more than a year. I've really missed you to death. Hui Lang excitedly came in front of her. However, as soon as he said this, he felt 2 cold gazes fall on him from behind. He couldn't help but stiffen, then smiled embarrassedly. Actually, my master also missed you. Come with me. She hooked her finger, indicating for him to come to the side. Yes. Hui Lang responded and turned to look at the child. Then, he followed her to the side and asked with a smile, 9th young master, actually, I'm here this time. Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted. Your master's illegitimate son. She glanced at the little boy from the corner of her eyes. The more she looked at him, the more she felt that he looked exactly like Xianyuan Mo's. What? Hui Lang widened his eyes in astonishment. Master's illegitimate child? How is that possible? Why would she think that? On the other side, the little boy who was looking away but was listening to their conversation tensed up when he heard this. The corner of his mouth twitched imperceptibly. Feng Jiu crossed his arms and snorted coldly. Isn't that the case? Don't tell me that he's your master's younger brother. Your master is almost 30 years old. It's not impossible for him to have an illegitimate child. Don't you think so? Hearing her sarcastic words, Hui Lang smiled embarrassedly and said, well, 9th young master, this really isn't my master's illegitimate child. My master is a virgin. Chapter 8:23. The two guards at the side had been listening attentively. When they heard this, their expressions became strange. When they looked at the red-clothed Fengjiu, their gazes were filled with curiosity and strangeness. Who would have thought that such a handsome youth with an outstanding temperament was actually gay? After hearing Hui Lang's words, Fengjiu glanced at him, then glanced at the child at the side and asked, "Then who is he? Why did you bring him here?" "He is." Hui Lang's voice paused. He looked at her and grinned, "Master asked me to bring him here and hand him over to you. He asked you to protect him well." Hearing this, she frowned. Is his situation very bad? It's been more than a year, and his troubles still haven't been resolved. How could it be so easy? It's because his current situation isn't very good, and he has no time to take care of him. That's why he asked me to bring him here and hand him over to you. He said that he wouldn't be at ease no matter where he was placed, and that he would only be at ease if he was by your side. That's why I brought him here from so far away. Hui Lang smiled apologetically while wiping away his cold sweat, saying, "Master can't do without me, and it took quite a bit of time on the way here. Now that I've brought him here, I have to go back first." As he spoke, he didn't give Fengjiu a chance to speak. He quickly walked to the little boy's side and said to him, "Then you'll follow her from now on. I'll take my leave first." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly left on his flying sword. Fengjiu was stunned for a moment. Seeing him leave as if he was escaping, she couldn't help but curse, "Hui Lang. You bastard. Why haven't you come back and explained everything to me?" This bastard, she hadn't seen him for more than a year, and she still wanted to ask him about his master's situation. He actually left that little brat behind and then left. What the hell was he doing? She suppressed her anger and looked at the little brat standing there like a little adult with his hands behind his back. He even glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. She couldn't help but glare at him. "Little fellow, come here." Although she was suppressing her anger, she couldn't get angry when she saw that the child had a miniature version of Mosa's face. Even when she spoke, her voice was softer, as if she was afraid of scaring the 3 to 4-year-old child. The child looked at her and thought for a moment. Then, he walked over to her and saw that he wasn't even at her waist. His delicate little face, and his face darkened again. "What's your name?" She squatted down and looked at the child at eye level. "Little King of Hell," he said, his voice so tender that it made one's heart soften. Fengjiu couldn't help but chuckle when she saw his delicate little face and the way he stood with his hands behind his back. "Little King of Hell? Are you being called that because you are too naughty? I'm asking for your real name, not your nickname." As she looked at the child, she wondered if their child would also look like this if she married Xianyuan Mo's. However, this child who looked exactly like him, was he really not his illegitimate child? He glanced at her and opened his mouth, "King of Hell." His soft voice was unique to 3 to 4-year-old children. Chapter 8:24. He nodded. Looking at her, a suspicious blush appeared on his delicate little face. His eyes flashed, and he reached out a hand to her. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and bent down to pick him up. "How about I let you ride on this white horse?" Unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, the child in her arms tightly wrapped his arms around her neck. "I don't want to ride." "Fine, I'll carry you, okay?" She classified him as a 3 or 4-year-old child. He was afraid of a strange-looking white horse like Bye. The child lay on her shoulder, his arms tightly wrapped around her neck. A strange light flashed through his beautiful eyes, and a smile blossomed on his lips. No one noticed. Fengjiu told Bye to go back first. She tossed out Flying Feather and took the child to the ovens to see if there was anything to eat. After grabbing a few things, she returned to the immortal's cave and went to the stone table under the tree. Alright, sit down. Eat something first, and then you can tell me everything. She sat down on the stone table with the child in her arms. Then she took out the things she had taken from the ovens from her space and placed them on the table. Only then did she sit down and look at the little guy. The child looked at her, but didn't say anything. Instead, he began to eat. Fengjiu sat there with one hand propping up her cheek. The more she looked, the more she felt that the child really did look like Shenyuan Mo's. However, she didn't think it was possible that he was an illegitimate child. After all, the uncle was a clean freak. The first time they met, she accidentally kissed him on the mouth and he fainted. She could only say that he had such a big child. But a little brother? She didn't believe it. If he really was a little brother, Hui Lang wouldn't have run away. He was obviously afraid that she would ask all sorts of questions. Hey, pretty boy, tell big sister, what's your relationship with uncle? Tell big sister, and big sister will take you to buy some candy. How about it? She was like Hui Lang trying to lure a little lamb, coaxing the child to see if he would tell the truth. Who would have thought that the child would not even bat an eyelid? He was eating elegantly, and even his sitting posture was extremely proper, which made her stunned. She thought to herself, as expected of someone from the 8 great empires. Even this 3 or 4-year-old child seems to have become a spirit. His actions are so elegant that even I can't compare with him. After a long time, he put down his chopsticks and wiped the corners of his mouth. He looked at Fengjiu and said, "Water." Hearing this, Fengjiu entered the immortal's cave and poured a cup of water for him. Seeing him drink the water like a little adult and then sit upright and look at her, she actually didn't know what to say. She suddenly felt that she would become very busy with such a child by her side. Seeing his gaze fall on her cave residence, she said, "Shall I bring you in to see where I live?" "Yes." He responded and slid down the stool to follow her into the cave. After looking around the cave, they finally came to Fengjiu's room and saw that it was quite spacious. "I'm the only one here. How about this? I'll tidy up later and make a stone room for you." "No need, I'll just stay in the same room as you." He spoke in a tender voice, and his delicate little face was tense. However, his ears were suspiciously red, and he didn't dare to look at Feng 9. Instead, he stared at the alchemy room. Chapter 825. There's only one bed in my room. I'm small, I can't take up much space. His expression didn't change as he spoke. He walked around the room with his hands behind his back and said, "In the future, you have to take me with you wherever you go." Fengjiu stared at him, somewhat confused. Just as she was about to ask him something, she heard a voice from outside. "Fengjiu, Fengjiu, the dean wants you to go to the main peak." She walked out and saw that it was one of the dean's people. She nodded and said, "I understand, I'll go over in a bit." Seeing that person leave, she turned around and said to the little boy behind her, "I'm going out for a bit." Before she could finish, she was interrupted. "I'll go with you." As she spoke, a small hand tugged at the corner of her robe. Seeing the little boy tugging at her robe, Fengjiu smiled helplessly and said, all right, let's go together. "Anyway, I really need to report to the dean that I have you tagging along." Thus, she brought him to the main peak on the flying feather. When she arrived at the dean's courtyard, she noticed that other than the dean and the vice dean, Mo Chen was also there. When the 3 of them saw her, their gazes simultaneously fell on the 3 or 4-year-old child beside her. "Where did this child come from?" the dean asked, his gaze sizing up the delicate little boy. He couldn't see anything special about him. He only knew that this child's appearance was outstanding, and at such a young age, he already had an extraordinary aura. Just by standing there, he gave off a sharp and intimidating aura, like a sharp blade waiting to be drawn. When the little boy came here, he didn't show any fear, not even stage fright. He stood with his hands behind his back like a little adult, puffing out his chest and looking at them with his chin slightly raised. Oh, no, his gaze only swept past the dean and the vice dean before landing on the white-clothed Mo Chen, sizing him up and probing him. Mo Chen also felt the child's deep and sharp gaze that didn't seem like a child's had been sizing him up ever since he came in. When he saw this, he was slightly surprised in his heart and also sized him up. However, he discovered that he couldn't see through this child. He was clearly a little boy of 3 or 4 years old, but he had a pressure and noble aura that made one's heart tremble. He clearly had the appearance of a child, but the cold light that shot out from his eyes made one not dare to underestimate him. Then, this little boy's exquisite features really reached the pinnacle. Even in the royal family, it was rare to see such an outstanding little boy. Dean, Vice Dean, this is Ling Mohan's son. She changed the topic and directly said uncle's son. Mohan. You even know him? Hearing this name that hadn't been mentioned for a long time, the dean and vice dean were slightly surprised. Yes, we've met a few times. She smiled and nodded. He sent someone over, saying that he had something to do and couldn't leave. He could only send his son over for me to take care of him. Moreover, he used to be a teacher here, so he felt that the dean and the vice dean wouldn't mind. The little boy standing beside Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly. He raised his head and glanced at her, then stood there quietly, not saying a word. Chapter 826. As he spoke, his eyes were filled with admiration. This child really looks like his father, but he is much better looking than his father. Fengjiu heard this and could not help but laugh. And, that's true. Uncle's bearded face is really scary. The child next to them heard their words and his delicate little face tightened. He still did not speak. You all sit. The dean gestured and said, actually, I called you here because I wanted to tell you in advance that there will be a ranking competition between the schools after school starts next year. It will be a school competition between the 6th class and the 2nd class countries. Every school will only have 10 places to go to the 2nd class countries to compete, and they will represent our school. I plan to include you. What do you think? Hearing this, she did not directly agree. Instead, she turned her eyes and asked with a smile. What are the benefits of winning? If there are no benefits, then I won't go. If I participate in that competition, I won't have time to refine more pills to earn money. The dean and the vice dean were stunned. They then shook their heads and laughed. Of course there are benefits. The dean said. I don't know if I have told you before, but the Academy of Stars and Clouds is only a branch of the Academy of Stars and Clouds in the Qingting country. Every country has a branch of the Academy of Stars and Clouds, and in the first-class countries, it can be said to be the headquarters of our country. His voice paused and continued. However, only those who have the highest strength can enter the Academy of Stars and Clouds in the first-class countries. The Academy of Stars and Clouds in the first-class countries is rated as a 1-star school. Here, we only have a 6-star school. Speaking till here, he smiled and said, if there is someone among you who can get an outstanding result in the wind and cloud competition of the Academy, then you can directly be admitted into the 1-star Academy of the first-class country. The 1-star Academy is very big, it is not something that we can compare with. Moreover, there are many proud sons of heaven from various countries gathered there. The students who come out from there, in the future, will have extraordinary achievements in various places, and there will be people in every field. However, the place that really makes the students of the 1-star school break their heads to enter is the Nebula sect. It is a sect in the 8 great empires. It has a long history and is very powerful. Its disciples are everywhere. In the Nebula sect, there are strong cultivators above the nascent soul stage. That place is the cradle of the proud sons of heaven. He looked at Fengjiu and said, I hope that you can go. Others don't know, but if it is you, I believe that you can enter a one-star school. In the future, you will have the opportunity to enter the Nebula sect. Fengjiu's eyes slightly moved. This was the first time he heard the dean of this school. Nebula sect. In the 8 great empires. At the thought of this, she calculated in her heart. She was currently at the peak of the foundation building realm, but under the pressure of the ancient divine beast, the fire phoenix, as well as the martial arts and assassination techniques she had mastered, she could fight and kill nascent soul cultivators, but she still couldn't do it perfectly. Then, before that, she would have to enter the golden core realm as soon as possible. If her strength improved further, even if she went to other places, she would be able to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Okay, I will agree to this. She nodded and said. Anyway, she will go to the 8 great empires in the future. With such a bridge, going to the 8 great empires would not be like a headless fly. Chapter 827. Coming out from the main peak, the little fellow pursed his lips and asked, "Who is that man in white?" When Fengjiu heard this, she was startled and asked with a smile, "You're talking about Mo Chen? Say he's Tianji Elder's disciple, what do you think? Do you think he looks like a banished immortal? He's just a gigolo," he said with a taut face. Pfft. Gigolo? How can a gigolo be so good-looking? She laughed lightly, but saw the little fellow's face become uglier and uglier. She couldn't help but find it amusing. Reaching out, she pinched his soft skin and joked, "But, he's not as good-looking as you. You're so cute." Hearing this, the originally angry little fellow's ears turned red again. His eyes flashed as he looked at her and somewhat arrogantly looked away. "Don't use such superficial words to praise me." Although his tender voice was stiff, it couldn't hide the slight smile on his face and the slightly raised corners of his lips. It was obvious that his heart was blooming with joy, but he still put on a sour face. "You're only 3 or 4 years old and you're already so smart. Are all the children on your side like you?" She stared at the child walking beside her and asked. She felt that other than his small body and soft voice, his temperament really didn't seem like a child's. "Don't try to trick me, I won't tell you." He humphed and walked forward with his short legs. Looking at the little fellow walking with his hands behind his back, she raised her eyebrows and smiled. Then, she went back to the cave with him. Because the pills had been refined and the academy was on vacation, the entire star cloud was empty. Only a few teachers and principals who didn't go back were left here. Because of this, she also wanted to go back home to take a look, or go out for a walk. Thus, after bringing the little fellow back to the cave, she asked, "How about I send you back to my home?" Who knew that as soon as she said this, the little fellow would angrily glare and anxiously shout. "You dare!" He glared at her, his little face dark. He clearly had an angry look on his face, but the childish voice that came out of his little mouth destroyed the feeling of anger. It really sounded soft and harmless. "If you dare to keep me in your house, I'll dare to sneak out. If you can't find me by then, or if something happens to me, I'll see how you're going to explain it. But I plan to walk around. It's very troublesome to bring a little thing like you along," she said with a frown, but in her heart, she was curious about his overreaction. "I'll only follow you, I'm not going anywhere." He made his stance clear again, staring at her with a pair of dark eyes. Fengjiu looked at the pair of eyes staring at him. He touched his nose. What the hell, she actually had the illusion that Xianyuan Mose was staring at her. She felt guilty for no reason. In the end, it was Fengjiu who compromised. After all, Hui Lang specially sent this child over from such a faraway place. It could be seen how important he was. Moreover, Xianyuan Mose couldn't take care of him over there and left him in her care. If she said that she sent him to the Phoenix dynasty, to be honest, she really didn't feel at ease. After all, his identity was too special. Thus, on this day, the two of them chatted casually in front of the cave. Most of the time, Fengjiu asked, but the little fellow didn't answer and only listened. Chapter 828. Hearing this, the little fellow's delicate little face instantly flushed red. His pair of beautiful eyes stared at her. I know how to bathe myself. You come out. What do you mean you know how to bathe yourself? With your small body, you can't even climb into this tub. Come here quickly, I have to bathe too. She tested the temperature of the water and found that it was just right. No. He directly refused, I want to bathe myself. You go out. You stinky brat, I want to help you bathe yourself because you have a lot of face. You still dislike it? You don't want me to help you bathe? Hee, I want to help you bathe. She laughed in a low voice. Her laughter was like a loud hui lang, making the little fellow's hair stand on end. He stepped back, turned around, and ran away. Why are you running? Do you think you can run away in my territory? Fengjiu strode forward and directly reached out, picking up the little fellow. Let me go. You woman, what are you doing? He struggled and shouted, but when a hand slapped his butt, his entire face instantly flushed red. He was so embarrassed that he didn't know what to do. Don't move. I won't care if you fall. Fengjiu didn't think much of it. Wasn't he just a little brat? What was wrong with hitting his butt? Thus, while warning, she took advantage of the little fellow in her arms calming down and not struggling to take off his clothes. You actually took off my clothes. The little fellow's flushed face was filled with disbelief. But when he thought about how he was naked in this woman's arms, he immediately covered his important parts with his hands. His entire body froze and he didn't know how to react. No need to cover up. You're only 3 or 4 years old. What's there to see? However, as soon as she finished speaking, she saw the red string on his hand from the corner of her eyes. Her eyes narrowed. Why is this red string on your hand? Hearing this, the little fellow froze and awkwardly said, I had someone make this up. It's not that one. Make it up. That's exactly the same as the one I have. Let me see. She put him in the tub and wanted to see the red string on his hand, but who knew that he would shrink back? If I made it up, it would be exactly the same. Why would I make it up if it wasn't the same? I've seen yours before. It's much bigger than this one. Her small body sat on a small stool in the bathtub and her hands were still in the water. Hearing what he said, Fengjiu also nodded. That's true. Mine is just an ordinary piece rope. Naturally, there's no way to shrink or enlarge it. Your rope is much smaller than mine. However, the weave is really the same. When I first saw it, I thought it was the one I made. The little fellow pursed his lips and looked at her without saying a word. All right. The water is getting cold. I'll help you wash it. She rolled up her sleeves and picked up a towel to wipe his back. Feeling his stiffness and nervousness, she couldn't help but laugh. What's wrong? Didn't anyone help you bathe when you were at home? Don't tell me that a little thing like you can wash it by yourself. As she spoke, she reached out and pressed his body, saying, Relax, I won't eat you. The little fellow stared at her, his dark eyes flashing. She didn't know what he was thinking. After a long time, his face was red and he only said one sentence, You have to take responsibility. Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but chuckle, There's nothing on you to look at. What's there to take responsibility for? Get up, the water is cold. Be careful not to get sick. Chapter 829. Where are your clothes? I'll put them on myself. He said with a big bath towel wrapped around him. Although she had seen everything, his small body, as she said, was not worth looking at, and he was too embarrassed to show it. Do you know how to wear it? She expressed her doubts. Yes. He said with a serious face, and at the same time stared at her guardedly, afraid that she would take the bath towel wrapped around his body. "Well then, wear it yourself, but I'll help you dry your hair," she said, and turned to get the bath towel again. Seeing that she had left, the little fellow secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Before she came in, he quickly put on his clothes and sat by the bed to wait for her. Fengjiu came back with the bath towel, and saw that he had even put on his clothes. She praised, "Not bad, you're quite fast." As she spoke, she took the bath towel to dry his wet hair, and then said, "If you're sleepy, go to sleep first." "And?" he responded, looking at her in front of him, and his eyes moved. "What? Do you have something to say?" Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and asked with a smile. Hearing this, the little fellow turned to sleep on the bed, pulled the quilt over, closed his eyes, and ignored her. It was not until he heard footsteps walking out that he opened his eyes. His eyes flashed with a deep and wise light, and a trace of gentleness and joy. Covered with her quilt, and smelling the faint fragrance, sleepiness came over him, and he fell into a deep sleep. After bathing, Fengjiu came in wearing her underwear, and while drying her hair, she saw that the little fellow was sleeping outside the bed. She could not help but shake her head, and with a smile, went forward to move him inside. But just as she bent over to touch him, the child who was originally sleeping soundly suddenly opened his eyes. The fierceness that shot out from his eyes startled her. At that moment, she seemed to see the child about to attack, but when he saw that it was her, the fierceness in his eyes dissipated and he returned to his previous state. "Done bathing?" the young voice with a strong sleepiness asked. "And?" she responded, looked at him, and said, "You sleep inside, I sleep outside. I'm a man, so I sleep outside. You're a woman, so you sleep inside." Listening to the childish voice telling her that he was a man, she couldn't help but smile. "I'm an adult, you're a child. Children sleep outside, if you roll off the bed, you'll fall. Be good, sleep inside." Seeing this, he thought for a moment before moving in. Then, he patted the place where he slept. "I've already warmed the bed for you. Go to sleep." The corner of her mouth twitched. She glanced at him before lying down and asking, "Who taught you that? You even know how to warm a bed?" As he spoke, he pulled the blanket over himself and yawned. "Sleep early. We'll leave tomorrow." "Yes." The little fellow responded and turned over to face her. He reached out his little hand and wrapped it around her waist. Only then did he close his eyes in satisfaction. His natural intimate action startled Fengjiu. Her closed eyes opened again. She looked at the little fellow who was snuggling up to her, his little hand still wrapped around her naturally and intimately. Her heart trembled slightly. This little fellow gave her a very strange feeling. She kept feeling that something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. She shook her head and did not think too much about it. Sleepiness overwhelmed her, and she fell asleep with the person beside her. Chapter 8:30. He only woke up when he felt someone sizing him up. The moment he opened his eyes, he met her slightly moving gaze. Seeing that she was looking at him, he looked back at her without moving. When their eyes met, something seemed to flash across Fengjiu's heart. The familiar feeling and unbelievable thought stunned her. She stared at him for a long time, then moved her lips and called out, "Uncle." The little fellow's eyes moved slightly, but he did not respond. He continued to look at her with his pitch-black eyes. "Xianyuan Mose." She called out again, her gaze also fixed on his eyes, not missing a trace of his expression. The child moved his mouth as if he was about to say something, but he heard the sound of him talking to himself. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. "It shouldn't be possible. It's one thing to turn old, but how can he turn into a little kid?" She muttered, suppressing the strange feeling in her heart and shaking off the strange thought. She turned over and sat up, quickly putting on her clothes and washing up in the next room. Seeing that she had woken up, he reclined on the bed lazily with one hand supporting his head, exuding an aura that did not belong to a child. A smile flashed across his pitch-black eyes, but Fengjiu did not see it. After about an hour, both of them were done washing up. Fengjiu went to the main peak to bid farewell to the dean and the rest, then returned to the cave abode and said to the two beasts, Lao Bai will stay behind and guard the cave abode with Xiao He. Tun Yun will go out with us. Master, why should Tun Yun go out with you? I want to go out too. Lao Bai kicked his hooves and snorted, looking dissatisfied. What other reason can there be? You can't even control your own mouth, how can I let you follow me? Fengjiu glanced at him. Moreover, I plan to let Tun Yun watch the son of King of Hell, I don't feel at ease leaving it to you. Master. He wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Fengjiu with a wave of his hand. Alright, we're only going back for a few months, we'll have to come back. If you want to go back with us, I'll leave you at home. Then I'll wait here for your return, Master. I don't want to go back to the Phoenix dynasty. As it spoke, it was afraid that its master would really take it back and leave it behind. Therefore, it took a few steps back and directly lay on the ground. However, Fengjiu rubbed his chin as if he just remembered something. Why don't you come along? When the time comes, I'll send you to Xiao Bai's place. Last time, I heard that Leng Shuang and Leng Hua also came over. It's a good opportunity to go and take a look. Really? I'll go. It stood up excitedly and bent down in front of Fengjiu and the son of the King of Hell. Come up, I'll take you faster. The path here is very winding. You and Tun Yun go to the entrance of the courtyard and wait there. I'll bring this little thing over on the flying feather. Yes, the two beasts replied. After the two beasts left, she looked at the little fellow who had been silent all this while and asked, Have you always been so boring? Aren't you happy to hear that I'm taking you out to play? The son of the King of Hell twitched the corner of his mouth and looked away. All right. She shook her head helplessly and tossed the flying feather to him. Then, she brought him onto the flying feather and all the way to the entrance of the courtyard. When they arrived at the entrance of the courtyard, she dismounted from the flying feather and was about to jump onto Lao Bai's back with the son of the King of Hell when she saw a figure walking out. She did not want to pay attention to it, but who knew that after she and the little fellow got on the horse, he actually blocked the way in front of the horse. Chapter 831. Nieting stood in front of the horse and looked at Fengjiu, who was sitting on the horse. When his gaze swept past the little boy's face, his expression changed slightly. What does it have to do with you? Fengjiu looked at him and said coldly, Get out of my way. Where are you going? I'll send you there. He said, his voice stiff. Thank you, but there's no need to trouble you. As soon as she finished speaking, she pulled the reins, squeezed the horse's belly and went past him. He watched as the person in front leisurely rode away on his horse. He stood there without moving and quietly watched until the figure disappeared from his sight. Only then did he withdraw his gaze. Master, do you want us to take her back? The man in black who suddenly appeared came to his side. As soon as he spoke, Nieting glanced at him. The man in black was shocked. He quickly lowered his head and retreated, not daring to look him in the eye. As he retreated, he caught a glimpse of him riding on his sword and following Fengjiu from afar. Seeing this, he was slightly startled, but he could only follow. On the main peak of the academy, a white figure watched from afar as the red figure rode away on the white horse. As for Ouyang Xiu, he hadn't even been able to touch the corner of Fengjiu's robe before he was defeated, and he even had to acknowledge Fengjiu as his master. This made the 10 of them very angry, and also stimulated Ouyang Xiu's desire to practice cultivation. He had originally planned to go back, but the crushing defeat caused him to bury his heart in cultivation, and he decided not to go back. What do you think he's doing? He's been following us all the way. Lao Bai walked with his hooves and looked back at Niateng, who was following them from afar. He was very puzzled. It was difficult to understand the thoughts of humans. As the crown prince of Qingtang, Niateng wanted to forcefully take his master and marry her as his concubine. That scene was bloody. Who would have thought that he was following his master like a ghost now? What was he trying to do? Go on your way, don't worry about anything else. As Fengjiu spoke, he reached out and took out a fruit from the space. He passed it to the son of the king of hell beside him and said, "This is for you." The little fellow closed his eyes and leaned into her arms. He didn't even look at her and said, "I'm not eating." "You little brat, you're quite picky." She didn't mind. If he didn't eat, she would eat. However, she saw that the little fellow in her arms was not fixed in time. He was either turning his head, moving his body, or adjusting his sitting position. "What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable sitting there?" she asked as she ate the fruit, holding his waist with one hand to prevent him from falling off the horse. "Why are you flirting everywhere?" He suddenly opened his eyes and asked. His delicate little face was filled with unconcealable distress. "Ah." Fengjiu was stunned. "Womanizing? I don't." She didn't have the time for that. "No. Then why did this guy follow them? And what's up with that gigolo? The way he looks at you doesn't seem right." He was like a jealous husband who had knocked over a jar of vinegar, refusing to let go. It would be fine if he looked like an adult, but he looked so small. She couldn't help but laugh when she heard his words and looked at his expression. "You're quite a busybody. Tell me, are you really only 3 or 4 years old?" Her eyes were filled with suspicion. She felt that even if a 3 or 4-year-old child was more intelligent, it was impossible for him to be so intelligent. Those people are an eyesore. Chapter 832. Just ignore them. As a person, you have to be open-minded. For those who are an eyesore, let's just treat them as air. That way, we won't make things difficult for ourselves. She chuckled and rubbed his head, pressing him into her embrace. "All right, be good. Don't throw a tantrum. I'll buy you good food when we get to the city." Listening to her coaxing him like a child, he felt a sense of novelty and sweetness. His originally tense little face relaxed, and he quietly leaned into her embrace after responding with an "mm." When they entered the city, she even tied a cloth around Lao Bai's mouth to prevent him from causing trouble. When they arrived in the city, she made him slow down and walked all the way to the black market. When they arrived at the entrance of the black market, she handed Lao Bai over to the black market staff and entered with the King of Hell's son. Tun Yun followed beside them. Hearing Fengjiu's arrival, the president of the black market hurriedly came out to welcome her and personally invited her in. "Ninth young master, I've sorted out the information you asked for. Take a look. It's all here." After dismissing everyone, the president took out a stack of information and handed it to her. "According to the information you gave me, I used a lot of connections to gather this information. Because it's a noble family from a first-class strong country, the black market also had to go through a lot of inquiries to obtain this information. Sorry to trouble you." She nodded and smiled. Then, she opened the information and read it. The president beside her also spoke. The Shengguan family is an aristocratic family that specializes in alchemy. Among them, Shengguan Wanru has the most outstanding talent in alchemy. However, Shengguan Wanru lives in seclusion in the Shengguan family. It can be said that some of the children in the Shengguan family have never seen someone like her. He paused and said, "We've asked around. From the information, we're guessing that Shengguan Wanru might be imprisoned." Hearing his words and looking at the information, Fengjiu's expression darkened. Most of the information recorded on the Shengguan family's foundation, but there were only a few words about his mother, Shengguan Wanru. It was clear that if the people from the black market were not investigating, this information would not have been known by outsiders. Shangguan Wanru has never married. Some people say that the Shangguan family is reluctant to marry off the daughter of a high-level alchemist and wants her to be used by the family. As far as we know, many people have come to the Shangguan family to ask for Shangguan Wanru's hand in marriage, but they were all rejected by the Shangguan family. Because she rarely appears in front of people, coupled with the Shangguan family's deliberate actions, people gradually forgot about Shangguan Wanru. Fengjiu put away the information and said to the black market's president, "Other than the information, I also have a few bottles of potions and a pill for you to auction off." "Oh. I wonder what kind of medicine it is." "What kind of pill?" His eyes lit up. The ghost doctor's items were always extraordinary. He knew that she was learning alchemy. Could it be that she could produce pills in a short year? She took out 3 bottles of potions and placed them on the table. Then, she took out another bottle and said, "The potions are for advancement. 2 of them can help golden core practitioners break through, while the other bottle is only suitable for nascent soul practitioners. As for this bottle, there's only 1 pill in it. It's a newly refined beauty pill." Chapter 833. The black market master was amazed, especially about the face-nourishing pill. He promised, "Ninth young master, don't worry. I will sell this face-nourishing pill for a sky-high price. I will spread the news first. With the name of the ghost doctor, with such a good item, it might even attract some aristocratic families from high-ranking countries." "Okay." She nodded and handed the pill to him. "After you sell it, I'll come back next year to settle the accounts with you." "Yes, I'll settle everything by then. It'll be as simple as it can be," he said with a smile. He knew that she did not like trouble, so he asked, "Ninth young master, since you've left the academy, do you want to stay in the city for a few days? I can arrange a place for you to stay." "No need, we'll walk around." She shook her head and left with the son of the king of hell after settling the matter. The chubby Tun Yun followed behind them. She brought the son of the king of hell to a restaurant for a meal and bought many pastries and fruits for the journey. Finally, she rode on Lao Bai and headed to the next place. 2 days later, Fengjiu shook off Nyeteng who had been following them and brought the son of the king of hell to an inn. Not long after, Du Fan and Bai Xiao came to the inn and saw her by the window on the 2nd floor. "Master." After the 2 bowed, their eyes naturally fell on the son of the king of hell, who was wearing a small black robe and had a delicate face. They looked at him curiously. Both of them did not expect that she would bring a child with her. Moreover, where did this child come from? "I'll take a look at the place you chose this time. Let's go. Lead the way." She held the son of the king of hell's hand and went downstairs. She said to Bai Xiao, "Lao Bai is in the stables at the back. Go and bring him out." Bai Xiao was delighted when she heard this. "Okay, I'll go and take a look." Because he was worried that she would really kick him out, he had been training hard for the past few months. His hard work paid off. After a few months of hard work, he managed to reach the 4th level of his family's beast-taming technique. Now, he could control all spiritual beasts below the 9th level. Du Fan led Fengjiu away while Bai Xiao went to the back to get Lao Bai. He had not seen his old friend for a long time and was extremely excited to see him again. "Old Bai, I heard that you can speak. I haven't seen you for so long, but you've become much thinner than before. However, I've heard about you from the young master. You've done well." He patted its head and let it out while it shook its tail excitedly. "Let's go back to the top of the mountain. Master said that in order to prevent you from always causing trouble, we can't untie the rope in your mouth until we reach the place." As he spoke, he pulled it out. They flew directly after they left the city. Seeing this, Bai Xiao flipped over and rode on Lao Bai's back. "Lao Bai, let's catch up with them. Let's go." He shook the rope and clamped his legs together. The man and the horse dashed out of the city, stirring up dust along the mountain path. After 2 hours, they arrived at a manor. Du Fan said to Fengjiu, "Master, we've bought this place. We've set up a formation around it and even set up a restriction in the air. However, my ability is limited, so the restriction in the air is not high enough." Fengjiu led the son of the king of hell through the formation and came inside. He nodded when he saw the scenery inside. This place is not bad. I'll set up the restriction in the air later." As he spoke, he heard a joyful voice. Chapter 834. Leng Shuang and Leng Hua quickly ran over. They had not seen her for a long time and were very happy to see her. Their faces were full of joy. Seeing the two of them, Fengjiu glanced at them and nodded. Leng Shuang's cultivation has improved and Leng Hua's body seems to be in good shape. I wonder how your Tai Chi practice has been. Master, my Tai Chi has improved a lot and I practice it every day. If you don't believe me, you can try me. Leng Hua said with a smile and his gaze fell on the son of the king of hell. Who is this child? He's so handsome, but why does he look so familiar? The son of the king of hell glanced at him and looked away indifferently, ignoring him. He said he's the son of the king of hell and he's been sticking to me all day. He said he's the younger brother of the Yama Lord. She glanced at the little fellow beside her and saw that he was not afraid of strangers. His delicate little face was still expressionless, as if nothing could arouse his curiosity and interest. The son of the king of hell. Leng Hua was stunned for a moment and then smiled. How about I show you around? Don't treat me like a child. Also, remove the word little. The son of the king of hell is not someone you can call. A certain someone said coldly. However, his childish voice and his stern little face did not have the effect of warning her at all. On the contrary, Fengjiu could not help but reach out to pinch his cheeks when she saw his expression. His ears turned red when she pinched his face in front of so many people. He glared at her in embarrassment. Don't pinch me. So many people are watching. Ha 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 ha. Fengjiu could not help but laugh out loud. Seeing that the little arrogant look was very cute, she reached out to carry the little person and said with a mischievous smile, "Not only do I want to pinch your face, I want to kiss you. What should I do?" As she spoke, she kissed him on the cheek, not giving him any time to react. The son of the king of hell was stunned. The redness on his ears spread to his face and neck. He stared blankly at Fengjiu, as if he did not expect her to kiss him in front of so many people. He could not react in time. It wasn't until everyone laughed that he came back to his senses. However, he wasn't angry. Instead, he crossed his arms and snorted coldly, "Kiss me then. You'll have to pay me back sooner or later anyway," he said meaningfully. This woman, he didn't know she was so bold, even daring to mess around in front of others. Sure enough, she was lustful. Her previous seriousness was all an act. She must have wanted him for a long time. He should have given her this chance in the past. Keep pretending. Fengjiu laughed and was about to give him to Leng Hua, but the little guy wrapped his arms tightly around her neck and said, "I won't let anyone touch me." Fengjiu was taken aback when he heard that. He smiled and said, "What? Do you still have misophobia? Instead of learning from the good, you're learning from your brother's bad habit." The son of the king of hell turned his face away and leaned on her shoulder without saying a word. "Master, the courtyard is ready. Let's go in and rest first," Leng Hua said. Seeing that the child did not let anyone carry him, he could only follow beside. "Okay, let's go in first," she responded and walked in with them. As she looked at the scenery in the manor, she asked, "Du Fan, how did you find this place?" Chapter 835. Fengjiu nodded and chatted as they walked. When they arrived inside, he asked, "Did Luo Yu and the others go on a mission? Why don't I see them?" Xiang Hua took them on a mission and went out. "They'll probably be back in 2 days, Du Fan said. After they sat down in the hall, Leng Shuang served them tea. After their Tianyuan palace was reorganized, there weren't many people. Although there were former people who wanted to follow them, they all felt that they couldn't accept them after an investigation. Therefore, there weren't many people here, only the few of them and the 8 Phoenix guards. Although there weren't many people, each of them was worth 10 people. Xiang Hua took them on missions and made a name for themselves. In just a few months, whether it was assassination or other missions, they did well. Now, their orders were already scheduled until June next year. Therefore, they also felt that they could have people who wanted to join the Tianyuan Palace, but they couldn't just let anyone join. "Did you personally send the medicinal pills I asked you to send to the 100 Years Mountain?" She took a sip of tea and asked again. "Yes, I personally handed the medicinal pills to Miss Wanyan. She was very happy when she received the medicinal pills and even sent a box of gifts over. I originally wanted to send a letter to inform Master, but I thought that Master would also be here today, so I didn't say anything." "Yes." She nodded. "Xiang Hua is in charge of external affairs and you're in charge of internal affairs. He's really good." As she spoke, she looked at him, took out a medicine bottle, and handed it to him. "This is a foundation-building pill. You've stayed at the peak of great spiritual master for a long time, so it's time to advance." When Du Fan heard this, his eyes were filled with surprise. "Thank you, Master. Do your job well, and you won't be short of benefits in the future," she said with a smile. "Yes, this subordinate will definitely not disappoint Master's expectations." He held the pill bottle in his hand, his heart filled with excitement. A foundation establishment pill, this was a priceless item. Back then, Xiang Hua was betrayed for a foundation establishment pill, but when it came to his master, he was casually given it to him. He knew that following his master was the best choice he had ever made. "Young master, we're back too." Bai Zhao's voice came from outside. Not long after, he strode in. Upon seeing Bai Zhao, Fengjiu said, "It's good that you're back. I want to see your beast taming skills. If they don't satisfy me, you know what to do." "Yes, young master, don't worry. I've been practicing the art of taming beast for the past few months. In addition to my own exploration, I can handle any spirit beast below the 9th level." His words were filled with confidence. He was indeed in high spirits compared to a few months ago. "Yes, master." Du Fan said, "Bai Zhao's beasts have indeed improved rapidly. Every time Xiang Hua and Luo Yu go out on a mission, they'll bring back a spirit beast for him. There are even ferocious beasts that are kept in the forest behind us. He can even tame them." She nodded and smiled. "Let's go. Since we're free now, I'll go and see how you tame your beasts." She gestured and got up. She was really curious about beasts. After all, as far as she knew, there were more beast tamers than beast tamers. Only some ancient families had the beast taming art. This was also the reason why she wanted to recruit Bai Zhao after learning from him that he came from a family of beast taming arts. "Okay." Bai Zhao nodded confidently and went to the forest behind her. Chapter 836. Fengjiu and the rest did not go near the forest at the back of the mountain. They watched as Bai Zhao walked into the forest and stopped about 100 meters away. She then took out something, and the sound of a musical instrument could be heard. The voice slowly spread out with Bai Zhao as the center. When the voice spread out, there was a faint flow of air that was visible to the naked eye. It was like ripples in the water, spreading out in circles. They did not feel anything when they heard it, but Tun Yun, who was lying on the grass beside them, straightened up when it heard the sound and looked at Bai Zhao. Noticing Tun Yun's strange behavior, Fengjiu's eyes flickered, and his gaze fell on the front. Within a few breaths, more than 20 spirit beasts and ferocious beasts ran out from the forest. These spirit beasts and ferocious beasts seemed to have lost their drive and bloodthirsty nature. They came over ferociously and circled around Bai Xiao, growling softly. One of the ferocious beasts even lowered its body to let Bai Xiao sit on it. Bai Xiao rode the ferocious tiger to Fengjiu while blowing the beast-taming art. She removed the thing from her lips and looked at Fengjiu with a smile. "Young master, I can tame beasts below the 9th level, but I have to cultivate my family's beast-taming technique to the 6th level for beasts above the 9th level." Fengjiu nodded as he looked at the ferocious tiger that did not have a contract and was obediently serving as his mount. "Not bad, you've improved very quickly. With this, it's okay even if you can't fight." Her gaze swept across the beasts, but she was thinking in her mind. Bai Xiao's beast-taming technique could be equivalent to an army once she cultivates it. If it were a group battle, this beast would be of great help. The son of the King of Hell, who was standing beside Fengjiu, also looked at Bai Xiao for a while before moving his gaze away. "How many people in your family know how to tame beasts now?" Fengjiu asked. "My grandfather knows how to tame beasts, and so does my father. However, my father's golden elixir was injured, so he can no longer cultivate our family's beast-taming mantra. Moreover, he can't play the beast-taming song, so everyone in the family knows how to tame beasts. Only my grandfather and I know how to tame beasts." Speaking of this, he was a little excited. If it was not for the pressure that the young master gave him, he did not know that he could cultivate his beast-taming mantra to the 4th level. He was thinking that if he could get a bottle of that medicine for his grandfather, perhaps his grandfather's beast-taming mantra could also be improved. However, he also knew that the young master would not take out the medicine if it wasn't for his own people. Every bottle of his medicine was a treasure that people would fight over outside. Control. However, this time, before Bai Xiao could say anything, the son of the King of Hell, who was standing beside Fengjiu, spoke up. "Taming beasts is controlled by sound, but those who have successfully cultivated it only need sound to tame beasts. They don't need the assistance of musical instruments. People like him should be at the lowest level of the beast-taming mantra, so they need musical instruments to control them." Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at him in surprise. "You know." Then, he thought for a while and nodded. "That's true. What doesn't the 8 great empires have? They should also have beast-taming aristocratic families, right?" Chapter 837. Hearing this, everyone's eyes fell on him. The 8 great empires? The beast trainer sect? What kind of existence was that? These thoughts surfaced in everyone's mind. They were very curious about the 8 great empires that they had never been to before. However, they also knew that they would not be able to go to such a place without sufficient strength. They knew very well that if their master went there in the future, they might not be able to go there as well. Without sufficient strength, they would not be able to survive in such a place. After staying in the manor for a few days, Fengjiu set up a new air ban and strengthened the protection of the array around the manor. Seeing that Luo Yu and the rest had not returned, he left Lao Bai behind and only brought Leng Shuang and Leng Hua, the son of the King of Hell, and Tun Yun out of the manor. They only returned to the Phoenix dynasty when the new year was approaching. In the palace. "Feng Xiao, did little Feng say when she's coming back?" Old Master Feng came to the palace with his hands behind his back. Feng Xiao, who was busy with work, looked up. Seeing that it was the old master, he put down his work and stood up with a smile. "Father, don't worry. Xiao Jiu should be back for the new year. There are still 2 days before the first day of the new year, so it should be within these 2 days. Send a few people to wait at the city gate. If they see her coming back, they can inform me. I don't have to keep waiting like this." The old master paced back and forth as he said, "I wonder how long she'll be staying this time. She's been away for a year. I wonder if she's lost weight. Seeing this, Feng Xiao smiled and said, Father, don't worry about Xiaojiu. You should take care of mother. She's about to give birth, so don't forget to leave her side. Thinking that he would have a younger brother or sister soon, and that the younger brother or sister would be more than 10 years older than his daughter, he had mixed feelings. He was emotional and happy at the same time. He did not expect that he would have a younger sister-in-law after living for so long. This feeling was really novel. It's okay. Su Shi has calculated. She should be giving birth after the new year. He waved his hand and said, What's more, we've already prepared the midwife and everything. It's foolproof. I wonder if they told Xiaojiu the good news. Does she have an aunt or uncle now? Feng Xiao laughed. The old man also smiled awkwardly. His face was a little hot. She was already so old, yet she still wanted to have a child. Speaking of which, her shamelessness was a little. Then I'll go back first. Remember to tell me when little Feng comes back. As he spoke, he hurriedly turned and walked out. When Feng Xiao saw this, he shook his head and smiled. He walked out with his hands behind his back. Just as he was about to call the Phoenix Guard to wait outside the palace gates, he saw a Phoenix Guard rushing over. Master, eldest miss, and the others have returned. The middle-aged Phoenix Guard smiled happily and said, They are already at the entrance of the palace. I saw them from afar and came in to report. Hearing this, Feng Xiao was overjoyed. Good, good. It's good that they're back. As he spoke, he strode out. At the entrance of the palace, Feng Jiu and the others walked in together. She, who was walking in front, saw her father striding out to welcome them from afar. When she saw him, she could not help but reveal a gentle smile on her face. Her heart also softened. Chapter 838. Daddy. She ran over and threw herself into his arms. Daddy, did you miss me? Feng Xiao caught his daughter who was throwing herself at him. Even the tough man's heart was unbelievably soft at this moment. He gently patted the head of his daughter in his arms and said with a smile, Yes, ever since you left home, I've been thinking about when you'll come back. I've been looking forward to it. Finally, you're home. Let's go, Daddy will get someone to cook your favorite dishes to welcome you back. Behind them, the son of the king of hell walked over slowly with a straight face. He looked at the father and daughter who were hugging each other. Although they were father and daughter, he still felt that they were an eyesore. However, he did not say anything. He was just unhappy and his face was dark. Who is this child? Why does he look like? Feng Xiao was about to say that he looked like the king of hell when he saw the child walk forward and tug at the corner of his daughter's clothes. What's wrong? Feng Jiu looked down and asked. The son of the king of hell stretched out his hands. He did not say anything, but his meaning was obvious. He wanted her to carry him away. Seeing this, Feng Jiu smiled and said, Daddy, he said that he's the younger brother of the Yama Lord. His name is the son of the king of hell and he's been following me recently. As soon as she finished speaking, she looked at the child who stretched out his hands and asked her to carry him. She smiled and said, You want me to carry you? Sure, we'll talk about it after you catch up with me. A burst of laughter rang out and a flash of red clothes flashed past. The person who was originally standing in front of her had already rushed forward and headed towards the palace. Seeing his daughter running towards the palace, Feng Xiao shook his head and smiled at the little fellow. Come, come, I'll carry you. Just as he stretched out his hand, he saw the child widen his eyes. The small figure rushed forward like the wind and chased after his daughter. This speed that he was a little speechless. This child was only 3 or 4 years old, right? How could he have such speed? Monarch. Leng Shuang and Leng Hua bowed. Oh, why are only the two of you coming back? The Feng Wei and the others didn't come back. He was a little surprised. Not only did the Feng Wei not come back, but Lao Bai also didn't come back. They had other things to do, so Master let them stay there. Because Lao Bai can already speak, Master was worried that it would cause trouble once it spoke, so he also left it there and didn't bring it back. Old Bai can speak human language. It has become a divine beast. Leng Hua smiled and said, "No, but I heard that she said it after eating a medicinal pill refined by Master." "I see. All right then. You guys go in as well. It's rare for you to come back, so let's have a good rest." He smiled and went inside with the two of them. In the palace, the old man who heard that Fengjiu had returned came to the front. Before he reached the front of the palace, he met Fengjiu halfway. Seeing his granddaughter in a dazzling red dress, he couldn't help but reveal a loving smile. "Little Feng, you're finally back." "Grandpa." Fengjiu called out. He looked at his middle-aged grandfather and saw that his face was ruddy and healthy. He knew that his grandfather was in good health. That was true. He should be fine now. In the past, her grandfather had intermittent amnesia, but she had already cured it. Now, he was a martial emperor and could be considered the #1 expert in this 9th-tier country. With a beauty by his side, he was naturally happy and his complexion was excellent. Chapter 839. It's the new year. How can I not come back? Moreover, I heard from Leng Shuang that grandmother is pregnant. Of course, I have to come back. She smiled and held his hand. "Grandpa, I brought you a New Year's gift." "Heh heh heh, good, good, good. I knew you were such a considerate girl." He nodded happily and patted her hand that was holding his. "Have you forgotten about your father after seeing your grandfather? Why didn't I hear that you brought me a gift?" Feng Zhao's voice came from behind. Although he was serious, he could not hide his smile. Both. She laughed and looked back. The little boy was standing beside her father and looking at her. She smiled and said, "The King of Hell's son has one too." "The King of Hell's son? Who is this child?" The old master's gaze fell on the King of Hell's son's shrunken face that looked exactly like Xianyuan Mo's. His eyes narrowed. Is Mohan married? Even his child is so big. His face darkened. Seeing such a child, he instinctively thought that Ling Mohan might be married. Otherwise, where did this child who looked exactly like him come from? "Grandpa, I'm his younger brother, not his son. He hasn't married her yet. How can he have a son?" The little boy bowed to old Master Feng like a little adult. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Fengjiu. Hearing this, the old master's face softened. "Younger brother? It's good that you're not his son. If he secretly married someone else, don't expect me to marry my granddaughter to him." "Don't worry, Grandpa. It won't happen," the young voice assured. Hearing this, everyone had different thoughts. They could not help but look at him again. However, they saw his small body standing upright with a serious expression. Under the low-key but luxurious little black robe, no one could find any fault with him. He was so elegant and noble that it made people admire him. "Come, Grandpa will carry you." He bent down and reached out to carry him. Unexpectedly, the little boy took a step back and shook his head. He said with a serious face, "I don't need anyone to carry me." Hearing this, other than the old master, the others were slightly stunned. Then, they could not help but laugh. He did not need anyone to carry him, not that he did not need anyone to carry him. The group of people walked and chatted as they walked towards the old master's palace. When they arrived at the palace, they finally saw Su Shi, who was pregnant and full of motherly love. "Grandmother." Feng Nine stepped forward with a smile and bowed. Her smiling eyes fell on her belly. "Grandmother, are you going to give birth soon?" Phone girl came back. She smiled as she held her hand and sat down. She smiled and said, she should be giving birth after the new year. Then I'll stay until grandmother gives birth to little uncle, she said with a smile. If you're not in a hurry to go to the academy, you can stay at home for a few more days. Your grandfather often talks about you. He said that you've been away for a year. He's never been away from home for so long. He's always worried that you don't have enough to eat and get bullied outside. Hearing this, she laughed. I've always been the bully. Who can bully me? This child is so good-looking. He should be 3 or 4 years old, right? She looked at the son of the king of hell who was standing quietly at the side. As she was about to become a mother, she was especially fond of children. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.